Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Premee Mohamed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.
And with that, we are ready to go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Arvanauts, to the stream, and welcome Speculate listeners to the stream as well. It is Session 3 of Speculate Court of Blades Valloward, and I hope folks are looking forward as much as I am to this session. It's going to be really awesome and exciting, and we have a crew, although not quite the crew you see assembled. There is one person who's different, but Mike will explain that when we get over to the group of people. Before we get started, just a couple of quick reminders about things. Again, the focus, although you should focus my channel, you should follow me on this channel because that's a great way to find more content like this. You can also, as well, check out the Twitter !ARV tweets, the Discord !ARV's cord, and the website for this is arvanelleron.com. Very quickly, I don't want to focus too much on this because the focus here is Speculate, but !ARV Treon is my Patreon, !ARV shop is my merchandise area. You can pick up the publishing stuff, Icarus for my graphic novel from Athos Arts, Library for my 5e adventure and supplement from Alligator Alley Entertainment, and Grayshade for my Grayshade IP, my Grayshade novel, Renegade coming out next year, Heretic the year after that, plus a tabletop game being done by one Mr. Brandon O'Brien, which will come out next year, and also the audiobook by Tren Sparks, which is going to be coming out as well. So Tren will be working on that. You can find that all on the link of Grayshade. And as always, BLM, Black Lives Matter, continues to be important to affirm and assert the significance and importance of Black lives. Help Now, the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention. Important to reach out to others when you need help and to reach out to others when they need help as well. And Ukraine. Kherson was liberated yesterday into this morning, so a big win for the Ukrainian forces as they continue to win that war against Russia, but it has been a devastating war, and this is one way to be able to support them and to send a message about supporting all those who would fight back against those who would try to remove their autonomy and their right to democracy. And so that's a way to do that. Also, one last quick note, speaking of democracy, congratulations to everyone in the United States who actually came out and voted to try to preserve it. Again, not that it was all a set of perfect results, but it was a lot better than it could have been and was in a lot of ways a repudiation of some of the awful experience that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. So that was really great to see, and I'm glad that everyone was able to get out and vote in the U.S. Much more to be done. The fight continues, but there was a good blow struck over the last couple of days for that. Now, last thing I want to mention on the exclamation point side is Speculate, both for what we're going to be doing today and what we're going to be doing tomorrow, and I'll talk about that, or Mike rather will talk about that in just a bit. But Speculate will allow you to support the Speculate podcast. We're up to 11 patrons, 45 per month, and would love to see that continue. The more that we get there, the more that we can provide you continual content, behind the scenes stuff, and even other exciting things from our Speculate podcast, now in its 11th, I believe, year of production. So please help us continue to bring this content to all of you lovely folks. Again, schedule for tomorrow I'm going to let Mike talk about, but otherwise I'll be back with my own content coming next week. But this weekend is a Speculate weekend, and I'm excited for it to be so. So I'm going to unmute myself and apologize to the wonderful folks for interrupting them, which I may well have done unintentionally. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal, there we go, to reveal the incredible crew of Court of Blades. And I will let Mike introduce all of these wonderful folks, and I will shut up and allow him to do that. Mike, hello, welcome, and over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are continuing Valloward, our Court of Blades campaign, that being Court of Blades, a Forge in the Dark role-playing game by a couple of Drakes. It's very fun to have my physical copy here to refer to. So I want to first say thank you again to the Drakes, Sean and Abby Drake, for their support in this campaign. They've helped us with some promotional assets and that great video that you all probably just saw, and kind of the basics of this overlay that we have. So that is, for that, we are very grateful. And I want to say thank you to everybody who is joining us either for the first time or has been watching the VODs and is joining us live tonight. And I want to ask our players to quickly introduce themselves. So if you want to introduce yourself, and then I think just the name and playbook of your character. And then after the player introductions, I'm going to talk a little bit about a cool thing that we're doing tomorrow for Speculate, and then we'll get into game stuff. So if we're going to do player introductions, starting with Brandon, because they always make me go first.
Punished for my hubris, but hello everyone. I'm Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago, and 1/3 of the triumvirate of Speculate hosts alongside Greg and Mike. I am also the author of Can You Sign My Tentacle, my debut poetry collection, which recently won the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association Elgin Award, which is really neat. So if you want to read weird poetry about the gods of the Cthulhu mythos asking Drake for his autograph, that's a thing that you can do now. And tonight I will be playing Zelpha Hamill, who is very intense about people leaving the local flora and fauna alone in Vala Isle. What is the role that I'm playing again? Right, the key. I keep forgetting. Zelpha Hamill, the key.
Okay, I think I'm next. I'm Premee Mohamed. I'm a scientist and writer based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is Treaty 6 territory. I recently, on Sunday, won a World Fantasy Award for my novella, And What Can We Offer You Tonight?, which already had a nebula. So it's kind of exciting to know that you can double up. And I'm sure my editor will enjoy his 78 hours or whatever in InDesign trying to add something else to the cover, because he had apparently a really good time doing that the first time. I play Lutrus. His pronouns are he, him. That is a Kuth. And he worked his way up from the gutter and is now working for one of the great houses and has a chip on his shoulder so big it is the size of a battleship.
I'm Rhiannon Held, jumping into guest once more. I write urban fantasy under Rhiannon Held and space opera under RZ Held. In my day job, I am a professional archaeologist, and I play Jensia, who is the knack.
Good stuff. I am, I just started to say winning a Yugo. I'm the only person I think in this call who's ever actually driven and owned a Yugo. It was an interesting time. Anyway, welcome everybody. So my name is Gregory Wilson. Most people on this channel, of course, know me as Arvin Eleron. I have run this channel for over 10 years now and was a founding member of the Speculate podcast, which has ran a little longer even than the Twitch channel did. So I don't know, a lot of things running a long time as I think about it now. I am an author and a college professor, and I don't have anything that I can instantaneously talk about that has won awards. Yeah, well, immediately, recently, but I will say that Grey Shade, which has been released and is out, is now where Renegade has been submitted to my editor, who is sitting in chat, Emily the Honored, and has been gotten back to me. So we're making good progress with that. And the Kickstarter we ran for it, Brandon and I are heavily into working on game stuff as well, game discussions and the like. So you'll see that next year as well. So that's been my focus on the writing side. And I am playing today Carevis who is the Bravo. And so I have worn appropriately a handy dandy list to all the swords you could potentially have. So I've got here the Buster Sword, the Power Sword, Hooked Space Sword, Laser Space Sword, Magical Sword, Barbarian Sword, Long Sword, Broadsword, Elven Short Sword, a regular short sword, and the You Killed My Father, Prepare to Die sword, which is probably the one that's closest to what I would actually be using.
So Greg, is a Batleth a dread blade?
Is it? Yeah, well, it's funny because my daughter was like, well, it's a lightsaber. Why can't they just say that? I'm like, shh, it's trademarked. You can't tell them. It's like, no, it's a laser sword. So all these things are like large sword, the hooked space sword that everybody knows. If you know, you know.
All right. I would classify a Batleth as a dread blade. So when we do our Star Trek Court of Blades crossover, that part is already sorted.
Oh my goodness.
Don't tempt me. The thing is, it would be the lower decks version of Star Trek.
I dig it. Yes.
So as introduced earlier, I am Michael R. Underwood. I go by Mike everywhere except my byline. I am a author, podcaster, and recently a game designer, as I've dipped my toes into that. Currently working on a Forged in the Dark game based on my Genre Nauts novella series. And I'm very happy to be the dancing master for this game, as well as one of the 3 co-hosts of Speculate, along with Greg and Brandon. So I'm going to be leading us through the dance of blades and intrigue and magic for tonight. But first, I want to spend just a minute to tell you all about a cool event that we are doing tomorrow as of this recording. So that is November the 12th, which is a Saturday, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you're watching this on the VOD, you are probably also then going to be able to watch the VOD of this thing that we will have done on Saturday, because that's how time works. So yeah, we are doing a fundraiser marathon starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to run up until midnight, hopefully not too much after midnight because it'll be a long day. And we're going to start it off with Greg, who is going to be GMing a one-shot written by the folks Critical Crafting. Greg has run stuff from Critical Crafting before and was very excited to bring that to the table. And for that, we're going to have players from the Skiffy and Fanty show, which Brandon and I are both involved with. Brandon much more so in recent months and years. And so that's going to be Sean Duke, Trish Madsen, and Paul Weimer, who are all lovely folks and friends. So they're going to be going through the Critical Crafting adventure. And then we are going to do a co-host stream of Destiny 2.
Hell yeah.
Where Greg, Brandon, and I are going to be jumping into Bungie's acclaimed and sometimes embattled first-person shooter with amazing skyboxes, because Brandon wants to chat with us about the storytelling in Destiny, which I think will be a really fun topic, coming to it as writers who have worked in different media and all have like a great fondness for video games.
Before you go on, can I just say that I just had this vision when you said this of Brandon calmly being like, all right, so, here what we have here. And I'm like, like 65 aliens, and he's just going to, well, so what are the things to consider about lore things? I'm like leaping over rocks and stuff. Like,
You say that like there's calm things to say about Destiny 2. The last 3 days, a gun has taken over Twitter.
Okay.
Destiny 2 is weird, so we're going to talk about a lot of very silly stuff. So expect that.
Awesome, I can't wait.
We're going to have a totally normal one. And then our final segment is going to be a Strange Friends Blades in the Dark one-shot, which the Strange Friends have done a number of times for various conventions and events, that being the crew of Yoi Gawain Lin, Yori Kusano, Valerie Valdez, myself, and Brandon O'Brien. For the most part, Strange Friends games have been GM'd by Brandon when we were streaming. But tomorrow, Iori Kusano themselves is going to be stepping into the GM chair for a game of Blades in the Dark in the city of Waterdeep, which is mostly known as one of the famous cities in Faerun, aka a D&D place. So we're going to be getting our dirty scoundrel indie RPG fingerprints all over a famous D&D city, and I couldn't be more excited.
And let me just say too about that. So first of all, Blades in the Deep. I'm very excited to watch that. Honestly, like I really am. But also, it's really important everyone come, not just for the reasons Mike's about to explain, but also because, you know, it would be awful if it was such a great experience that Iori, who swore that this does not mean that they're going to start DMing a longer campaign, it would be awful, chat, if it turned out that this campaign actually became a thing that Iori had to do. I can't tell you how terrible it would be if you all showed up and then told Iori what an incredible DM they are, and how awesome it would be if we could have a long form campaign. I'm just putting it out in the ether how terrible it would be if you all did that. So I'm just noting.
So Iori, they may still be asleep or not paying attention because they have other things in their life. So everybody just like be cool. Don't spill the beans and just show up in force for Blades in the Deep.
Is that the Iori Kusano DMing the Blades in the Deep game? I can't wait.
So yeah, we're bringing you all of this fun stuff as a gift and a representation of all of the different things and aspects of tabletop role-playing and storytelling in games that we all love, kind of coming at it with our different angles and different experiences, because we've been making Speculate as an actual play show since 2018, which seems kind of wild.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is we have way too many ideas and not enough bandwidth or resources to do them, because Greg, Brandon, and I all have other projects, and the amount of resources that we're getting in for Speculate, while we have received wonderful support from longtime patrons and some newer patrons over at patreon.com/speculate, and we've had a good relationship with kind of publishers and the developers who release games. In order to take the show up to the next level and being able to release the podcast more regularly than we are, or to like upgrade our tech situation for maybe some recurring cast, or spruce up our website, like there's a lot of things that we would like to do. And what we are hoping is that you, the community who watches and listens and enjoys the stuff that we do at Speculate, that you can help us make that happen. With your financial contributions, we will be able to kind of put together a pool of money that will let us kind of pursue some of those ambitions. I think more frequent episode release is going to be number one priority, but then we have a few other things that we are looking to do. And in recognition and appreciation of your donations, we have prepared a number of incentives. So if you are donating at a given level, you'll be entered into a raffle to get 4 signed books by me, that being the complete Re-Reyes Geekomancy series in paperback, to be sent to you somewhere in the continental US. Or you might get a signed copy of the Icarus and Jelinek books by Greg, or a copy of Can You Sign My Tentacle by Brandon O'Brien, because that's the thing that we do, and we have books that we can throw at you with love. So all of that and more you will be able to find here at twitch.tv/ArvinElleron tomorrow, November 12th at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, running all the way through midnight. We have segments starting at 3, 6:30, and then 9 p.m. And that is all of that.
And 2 things quickly. First of all, I've just posted a link, chat, which is to the Twitter that we're using. There's a tweet for this. There's also a Patreon thing, which Mike can maybe put in there too as well, the sort of link to that post. But the Twitter there is something we would love you all to post in the waning days before Twitter implodes completely. It would be nice if we all watched the last sun setting over Twitter with this thing. So if you could retweet this, that would be lovely. Also, you will note that in chat, Triffid has just put a bunch of lyrics to a song that Triffid has written specifically for the Speculate fundraiser, which will be debuting tomorrow. Triff had sent me this, and she was like, "Would you like to use it?" I'm like, "Obviously." So she has recorded it and all this stuff, and it's going to be played dramatically in its full debut on its way towards getting a Grammy, no doubt. But that will be happening tomorrow, so you'll want to be here for that. And the lyrics have been placed in chat as well. So yes, please spread the word. The goals are reasonable, I think. They, obviously it's not easy ever. I understand money is tight all around, but the goals are not, absurd. So it would definitely be helpful to us if you could do that and allow us to provide you more content. So
I didn't even know about the song. We were just kind of overflowing with cool extra
I was
stuff.
a surprise. And then just now she was like, "Well, can I post the lyrics?" I'm like, "Yeah, so yes."
Yeah, I already had one surprise queued for a segment in the fundraiser. So it looks like we're going to get that song and then something else, which is very cool.
No one told you we're supposed to prepare surprises. Now I have to rush to find one too.
Arudinel asked about that donation link. Mike, do you want to mention that quickly about what we're using for that?
Sure, that is fine. So we have a PayPal address that I use for doing Speculate business, which is honestly just one of my email addresses. So I'm going to put this into the chat, and I want everyone to be cool. Okay, be cool. Don't sign me up for spam or conservative political emails. Okay. I'll know. I won't know, but I'll be unhappy. So yeah, if you want to donate to Speculate for us to make more and better shows, that address is that's a PayPal address, mrucontest@gmail.com. And so you contribute there. I will be able to track all of those. So if you're making contributions at those higher levels that qualify you for the incentive raffles, then I will keep track of those, and we will probably do the raffles, I would guess, after the stream, because we're going to be kind of jam-packed doing stuff
The
tomorrow.
mods might be able to do that. We'll see. The mods might be able to run it because they're used to that from ArvCon, so we will see about that. I will mention too quickly that also Rudnell, if people decide that they would like to do a more steady contribution for Patreon, then we'll also count that in. I mean, we'll add that in. And so, for example, if you decide that you'd like to contribute, I don't know, $50 for the year or something like that, which is going to be on a monthly basis, then that $50 would go into the total amount for the fundraiser. So, we're kind of agnostic on the question of where to donate, but those are the two. One of them is the one-time only, and that's what the one that Mike just put, the one to which you should not ever send conservative stuff, because that would be awful. And besides, they're too busy figuring out why polls don't work for conservatives. And then the other one is the Patreon. That is our normal one that you can see if you type in Speculate.
Shout out to youth voters in the USA. You rock. Keep doing the thing.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And actually, Gen Z voters, so there was an interesting thing where people said, well, they didn't come out as much as was claimed. The thing that's important is that the overall demographic didn't come out more. What happened is the demographic stayed the same, but if you look at the political breakdown, young Republicans stayed home and the young Democrats came out. So that means the young Democrats increased their presence and the young Republicans reduced their presence. And that is a trend I would like to see continue for a long time. So anyway, yes, very proud of the Gen Z demographic, etc.
All right. So election stuff aside, I think that is all of our stage business in preparation for tomorrow's stream. So now I invite you to sit, stand, lounge, make yourself comfortable, and project your mind and take your imagination with us to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age, the jewel of the archipelago, the home of the great dance of houses, of which House Vorster has just recently clawed their way back into the kind of the main floor of the dance of houses, where there are 6 great houses that vie for control of this kind of seat of power and influence over the city of Valloward. Valloward is a kind of Renaissance fantasy city with some notable kind of magitech elements. If you're familiar with the cartoon series Arcane, in the world of League of Legends, we get some of that like magic and technology combining. So if this were a TV show, we would open with a kind of a high drone / CG shot over the city of Valloward, which has a mixture of several different types of architecture. But these buildings are all built to be able to withstand hurricanes and to be adaptable to seasons. So you've got kind of magically modular windows and air brakes and things like that. And then kind of almost floating above the city, we have kind of several lines of magically gravitationally projected trains. We basically have Earth magic maglev trains moving around the city. And so one of these trains kind of passes as we push in, and then we reveal House Vorster, a slightly crumbling but still majestic old manor, which has been around for all of the 300 years since Valloward was founded as Valor's Reward, when a group of kind of military veterans from what is now regarded as the old country by the Vallowed, those who live in Valloward, they were given title to this land, which had, to the best of their knowledge, been fully abandoned by its original inhabitants. So they've come and they've made their home, and the decades and centuries that have followed have given them a great deal of plenty. There is bountiful magic and produce and crops. And so when there is plenty, there is opportunity. And even in a place of plenty, there are people fighting for the bigger share or fighting over scraps because the people at the top are still taking everything. Previously on Valloward, the Founders Day feast hosted by House Vorster was infiltrated and disrupted by several assassination attempts by a criminal organization known as the Eels. And in the last session, these lovely retainers of House Vorster leapt into action, interrogating the Eels that they had captured and concocting a plan to snuff out the Eels entirely, which they managed to do, luring the entire faction back to House Vorster for a double or nothing assassination attempt, where House Vorster kind of boasted that they invite the Eels to come and try to break through the security again. And the Eels, having a vendetta against House Vorster due to their involvement and patronage of a art crafting engineer who has a prototype that would dredge the sunken district, which the Eels make their home. The trap was laid, the trap was set, the trap was sprung, and the Eels were shredded and scattered to the wind. Really, their surviving member is the person who turned coat to join House Vorster because this was an old comrade of Lutrus. And so the Eels as a faction just don't exist anymore. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our faction relationships sheet, and I'm just going to take them off the sheet entirely.
They were, if you will, annihilated. Thank you.
So there's just an empty spot there that I may or may not replace. So we did a bunch of stuff last time, but because we got right up to the end of time, I wanted to do XP in the moment because that's harder to do later on. What we're going to do now is we are going to talk about kind of what good stuff and what bad stuff you get having done this errand. So every time you do an errand, you get influence for the work that you've done, and you gain exposure, which is kind of the fancier version of Blades in the Dark's heat. The more exposed your group is, the closer you are to bringing shame to your house, because you have your work has been too obvious, too gauche, and not subtle in the way of the great houses and their dance.
Nonsense. Everything we did was entirely subtle. There was no...
Extremely subtle.
There was nothing at all. Come to the biggest party of the year. Just kidding. Whoops.
So the payoff and exposure section is on page 132 of Court of Blades, as I turn in my physical book, which is very pretty. So you get 2 influence by errand by default, but if the target of the errand is higher tier than you, you get extra influence. And I'm mostly going to be referring to this chart farther down, where 1 influence would be giving faithful service as a coachman or coach driver. 10 influence would be interception of an assassin's blade, admission of high treason in lieu of shaming the house. So I think what you all did was pretty cool. And I think it's about the equivalent of covering a significant social gaffe, because you are making up for the kind of damage to Vorster's reputation that happened when the original assassins were able to break in, though you prevented them from taking the lives of their targets. And I think you get +1 influence for entirely eliminating a criminal gang, basically wiping them off the board and making it so that the various institutions of the city don't have to worry about them anymore. How does that sound to y'all?
That sounds awesome to me.
It does sound awesome. We sound very heroic.
Yeah, like the bad news is all the other crime families have banded together. Is this under the uncouth under faction relationships, or am I looking at the wrong thing, Mike? Because I'm looking at faction relationships, but I don't see the eels, unless literally you just remove them completely.
I literally deleted them.
That's awesome. There's just
empty...
a thing that says faction name. That's just like insert gang here. Okay, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that awesome. Or I can go back in and I can write the eels parentheses like
destroyed,
no longer active,
extinct.
Yeah, extinct. Also, Chad, just a quick production note. Because of things we don't have to get into right now, the overlay switches and things like that means that we're not going to be using the one that has the sort of map available on the right side of the screen. We don't usually use that, but for some of the factions things we sometimes do. Next time we will have all of that coordinated and we'll be able to put that up there. So in the meantime, you'll just have to imagine a completely obliterated eel that does not even exist. You'll just have to think about that. So.
Okay.
Hey, can I ask a question about that actually, Mike? Do we have any reason to believe that some of the other rival gangs might be tempted to either look more favorably upon House Vorster, either like freaked out, like, oh my God, they just destroyed them, that's what, or are going to be like, hey, we can do something else. Oh, before I go on, 64 Raiders joining us from GOG.com. What's going on? My sister channel that I stream on. Thank you so much, Raiders. Thank you to the GOG.com Raiders. I don't know who was actually streaming. It might have been Kilgore. Hey, Kilgore. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Court of Blades Valloward and to a event of Speculate. It's good to see you all. Good to see everybody. You were in for a treat with this awesome group of people. So thank you very much. It was you. Thank you, Kilgore, so much for that raid. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. But anyway, yeah. So do we have any reason to believe, Mike, then that there might be some of the other gangs that might be happy that we eliminated a threat, for them?
Yeah, I think there are going to be gangs that were either competing for territory or action with the Eels, who have now, their situation has become a lot easier. I don't know maybe that doesn't automatically extend to increasing your status with them from like neutral to +1.
Right.
But I think that's absolutely something you can build on or leverage should it come into play. Like, this is the type of game where the fiction, the reality of what's happening in the story is always going to be really important for framing how actions are going to take effect and what impact they're going to have and how people are relating to you, instead of, as like a 7-point like relationship track with DCs or whatever. More of it is, we're talking through there. We have the status track, and then there's some intangible elements. I do think you are going to get one favor with House Vorster itself. There is influence, which is the kind of main resource where you, instead of like spending money because you all are working for a great noble house, pocket change is not worth tracking in this game. What the real economy of Valloward is favors. And so you spend influence, you call in favors, and capital F favor is an order of magnitude greater in scale.
Ooh.
Because if you go to House Vorster and ask for a favor, you can get a lot more than if you go to an individual person or even one of the other factions.
Can they make us a set of T-shirts that say "Ask me how we wiped out the Eels"? Can we ask me how I did that?
We annihilated a criminal faction. Ask me how.
Yeah, ask us how you too can annihilate a criminal faction like us.
No, what it is, it's a brooch of an eel with like a cross through it.
With a circle through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, merch idea.
We're setting up for the worst revenge situation ever, though. Like the one surviving, person who's right now in the sewers, like they'll pay, like. Oh
yeah.
man.
So you don't always get favor when you complete a mission, but I think because this was about House Vorster's reputation and you responded quickly and thoroughly, you're going to get 1 favor with the house in addition to the 5 influence. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the House of Vorster page and I'm going to fill all 4 of those boxes of influence. And then I'm going to invite one of the players to put 1 influence on your character sheet, because the house tracker can only hold 4 influence by default. And yourself as a character, you can hold 4 influence. And what this basically represents is that at a certain point, it becomes more difficult to keep track of the favors that people owe you, and the kind of the imminence and the weight of those favors is heaviest in the shorter term. As we express it here mechanically, there's always going to be the ability to make up or call on some old favor using a flashback or something like that. But mechanically, a character can have 4 influence and your house can have 4 influence. So who shall put an influence on their sheet? Pick soon, or I will pick someone.
Who could?
I'm gonna say let's give that to Zelpha, as Zelpha is a bit of a mastermind for this group.
Sounds like a plan.
Fine by me.
Okay. You can spend influence off of the group sheet. It just has to kind of happen by consensus, right? So great influence. You got a favor. And then we have to think about exposure. So in the book, it says anything you might be witnessed, anything you do might be witnessed or provable by the evidence you leave behind. To reflect this, your coterie acquires exposure as they go about on their errands. After an errand or encounter with an opponent, your coterie takes exposure according to the nature of this job. So 0 exposure, only your house is even aware that you were dispatched. That's probably not accurate. 6 exposure, the most, would be wild and devastating exposure. I don't know that it was wild and devastating.
It's devastating for the Eels.
I do think it was loud and chaotic because you intentionally provoked a full kind of raid by the Eels. And do we think that, do you think that people died in that raid? I think at least the Eels leader maybe died. If if death was involved, then it's going to be +2 exposure, which gets pretty high. So do we think this is closer to contained, discrete, and sensible standard exposure, or loud and chaotic high exposure?
I think it's discrete and sensible chaos.
This might be loud and chaotic.
Yeah.
Possibly. We did take out an entire gang. People talk. I don't know.
I mean, it was part of the reason that we did it, right? Was that because we had been vulnerable to attack and people had infiltrated before, one of the things we wanted to do in making it public was to send a message to everybody else not to do that. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like we had to do that, so it did attract attention. So
yep. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 6. That's 4 plus the 2 because death was involved. It says add +2 exposure if you left bodies. Bodies draw questions even in the poorest parts of the city. The question, it's not so much the questions as like, oh, House Vorster, they always have to go do things with swords. Were you working for another house and approaching things that way? Maybe the Eels would all have just disappeared someday, or maybe they all got jobs somewhere else,
If you
and it would be
ignore
handled more
bullies, they won't
subtly.
actually continue to bully or troll. Just ignore
Right.
them. That always works.
So that is that. 6 exposure is a fair amount. If you get up to 9 exposure, then we clear the exposure track and add 1 to shame. And that means that your coterie has brought shame upon the house, and there will be specific mechanical penalties if you reach that point. I don't recommend letting that happen if you can avoid it. One of the downtime actions you can take is to reduce exposure. So we'll definitely be able to talk about that.
Okay.
Any questions about this process? Okay, so when we do downtime, each character gets 2 downtime actions for free. You can take extra downtime actions if you spend influence. So 1 influence is 1 extra downtime action. What I am curious about first is, do you all want to have your group talk through what happened in that errand? Do you go out and celebrate afterward? Do you want a scene of kind of being debriefed with one of the leaders in House Vorster? Downtime is especially player driven, and I want to make sure today that we get some opportunities for all of the characters to be kind of in a scene together. So what do you all think about that?
Well, so we have, you said we're able to take how many downtime actions each? Sorry.
2 each.
Okay.
And the downtime actions list is on page 135 of the main book. And so your options are acquire assets, uncover a plot, long-term projects, intrigues, which are very big long-term with an intrigue, you can try to foil one of the other great houses. It's a specialized long-term project with its own rules. You can recover from harm. You can make amends, which is basically you go to a faction that you've offended, or you do penance for your shame. You can train, where you describe a scene that will let you put extra experience into one of your attributes, building toward taking another action point, like increasing your skills. Or you can indulge and reduce stress. So make amends will include reducing exposure here. So again, that's acquire assets, uncover a plot, long-term projects, intrigues, recover harm, make amends, train, or indulge and reduce stress. I know some of you have a great deal of stress, some less so.
Yeah, I mean, I have to. One of the things I'm going to have to do is reduce stress. But I mean, I don't mind if people want. I think training should be a priority, especially early in the game for some of us. But there's also reducing stress. So for me, I would either like to remove a stress and then train, or remove a stress and then make amends. If the party, I'll take that on if the party wants us to do that, because one of us should do that to reduce exposure a little bit. But I do have to reduce stress, and I think. Brandon, doesn't Zelpha have a ton of stress? Or isn't that the other one who... Somebody else had a ton of stress besides me.
I have 4 stress. In this game, the cap of stress is 8.
Yeah.
So
I got
that's
6.
not good.
I got 6.
At 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
We're all stressed.
Yeah, 3 and 4 stress are a bit risky in terms of reducing stress, because when you reduce stress, the mechanical manifestation, you look at your attributes and you figure out what your lowest attribute is, which might be 0, because you might have 0 actions in one of the attribute categories. You roll your lowest attribute to determine how much stress you relieve. So the better rounded you are, the more likely you are to be able to relieve a lot of stress. But if your stress relief roll is higher than the amount of stress you have, if you have 3 stress and you want to clear 4 stress, you overindulge, which either will mean you bring more exposure on the coterie. You might kind of be out of play for an errand as you're kind of putting your affairs in order, or you might be cut off from that source of your indulgence. So it is a little it's riskier to indulge your your solace when you're at like 2, 3, or 4 stress, because there's more numbers on the D6 that are greater than your stress.
Which is nice. Nothing risky about me doing that because, I have stress for days. So like, no problem.
Yeah. If you're at 6, then you can reduce stress one time. The trick there is if you roll at 2 and then you've still got 4, but it's become much riskier.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, do we want to start by having Carevis kind of go and relieve stress, and we'll kind of walk through that system?
Sure.
Great.
Yep.
So I believe your indulgence is faith. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, that's right.
So I see faith priest. Tell me about kind of what Carevis's faith practice is like, and where does he go? Does he have a long-term relationship with this priest, or
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So tell me a little bit.
The so I think if you were to follow Carevis, he would be going to one portion, probably an older section, I would say, of the city. And there is at the very back of it's older and somewhat poor. And so Carevis would walk, got the full armor and swords and all that stuff as usual. But as he walks along and then gets to the sort of a small out of the way area towards the back of that district, of that poor older district, there's a set of wooden stairs that kind of back towards one of the walls, actually the city walls around Valloward, that kind of switchbacks, up and then back and then up and back, and comes up to a fairly small, if you were looking at it from below, you might think of it as a hut, right? Or a shack or something like that. But when you get up closer to it, you can see that it maybe is a little bit larger. It's reasonably long, and it actually is along the back wall, basically on the top of the wall, and extends along it. And the stairs come up to that, and then the door, there's a wooden door in the front, and in there is the symbol of Carevis's faith that's carved into the front. And so at the top of the wall, Carevis would pause and then would remove one piece of his armor and place it at the door. And bowing his head, opens the door and steps into a fairly dimly lit, a dimly lit room that has a set of benches that you'd really stretch to call pews, but that's probably as close as you're going to get. And then a set of small little side tables set next to each pew. And on the front, a couple of stairs leading up to a kind of dais. And everything in wood, wood that has seen better days, sort of shabby on the inside as well. And so Carevis walks up, and at every one of these side tables, he stops and takes away another piece of his armor, one of the greaves, the breastplate, the whole bit, each step along the way, so that by the time he arrives at the front, all that is left really on the armor side, he just has his regular clothing below it, is his sword. And he takes up those last 2 steps and then takes the sword out, lays it on the dais, and then kneels down next to the dais and bows his head and waits for the voice of a very familiar voice that he's known since he was a child to greet him. It is the priest who runs this place. I can also play that if you want, Mike, but I didn't know if you wanted to take on there.
I'll play the priest, but I may ask you some questions along the way.
I'm throwing this at you as we go.
This older district is, I think, the one like just to the northeast of the oldest district. So the Vorster Manor is in that old district, which is either the Founders District or Old Valloward, depending on who you ask. The district you've moved into is known as the Barracks because it was the residences of the kind of enlisted soldiers that came with the leaders who were granted kind of the title. And so the barracks are, everything's a little bit kind of tighter packed in, more densely populated, and has not been kept up with as much wealth, even as the Founders District, which is like kind of uneven because the city has spread so much that it's not like the sole economic center of the city anymore. And the rail has really spread out opportunity and access. A worker from the barracks can go and work in a factory just next to the golden manor of House Grey Mist, that would be a 45-minute walk away otherwise. And so like there's a lot of this ability to travel around the city. And I think this priest, I need a Valloward specific name cache that I can draw from. But let's for now say that this.
I mean, there's one that's down there under on my sheet, the religious advisor Cartagano. I don't know if you want to use that, but I mean, that is who this would be, is a religious advisor.
Great. So Father Cartagano. Yeah, and I think we're going to have a priesthood that will basically have kind of, it's not just men or just women. So there's, be father this, mother this, and then probably parent or elder for for like non-binary or agender kind of priests in this situation. I think Cartagano's kind of robes they look like they're from a couple of generations ago because Cartagano has been active for a long time, but those robes also still evoke a little bit of the sartorial style of this church when it was in the old country. What flavor of the kind of Valloward religion do you think Carevis is a part of? Is he part of a denomination that's more focused on like the kind of the bounty and magic of this place and more focused on that goddess, or something that is still kind of maintains a strong tie to the kind of the cultures from which Carevis is in the diaspora?
I would say the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I would say the latter.
So that's the Reformed Javelin Church.
Yes.
Where
right.
The kind of goddess of plenty has a place of greater honor, but the kind of the importance of the other gods is still fairly substantial. Okay. Versus the churches that really focus on the goddess of plenty. And so, Father, and you're offering the blade to Father Cartagano, or are you setting it down in front of him?
Setting it down. This is a matter of removal of the items outside. You can't come to this place arrayed as if for war.
Okay. It is good to see you, Carevis. I have been hearing from parishioners that you've been quite busy, though I imagine House Vorster keeps you busy all of the time. It's good that you've come to see me, though you should come tomorrow again when this place will be a bit more full, I hope.
The problem, Father, is that I didn't come to see all of them. I came to speak to you.
Well, let's take a seat, and I will bring out the what is left of today's bread, and we will talk. It sounds like your heart is heavy, and you wear some cloak of feeling, and we will see if we can relieve you of that burden.
Okay, so I kind of nod and stand and follow him wherever, if he's going down to one of those benches, I would assume.
Yeah, I think he will lead you over to like one of the side tables. I imagine this almost as like a small round table, and then disappears into the back and brings out basically a like half a baguette, but it's from like today, and kind of is breaking bread and will like kind of pour either like a weak wine or clean water, just kind of this is a display of hospitality. It is fairly common in this religious tradition. They also have the breaking of bread, and the sharing of the bounty is very important here, there. And so, like, you're fed and kind of given refreshment, and Father Cartagano gives you like a minute or two just to like take in these sacraments. But the look that he's giving you is a little bit probing, but in a loving way, of like maybe a parent or an elder sibling being like, so what are you worried about, and how do I get to this without like kind of making you retreat into defensiveness?
I'm kind of nibbling away at the bread too. Like, I'm not, sort of like I'm doing my bit for king and country, so to speak, but it's not. And I mean, it's delicious, but it's just I don't have an appetite. And at one point I put it down the plate and I say, Father, I know that look. It's the one that you always give me before you ask me to pour forth my soul to you.
If your soul is weighed down by thoughts of what has happened or what may yet happen, instead of the clarity of what is and what may be, then we have a problem. You have a problem, and then I have a problem, because you have been coming to me for almost the entirety of my career as a priest, and it would look very bad for both of us if you were to find yourself in public disarray. So,
public disarray.
Why don't you tell me about your recent adventures as a great bravo, and we will see if we can deflect some of those feelings. Would that be the right term? Deflect, riposte? I was never a fencer.
I suppose it would be close enough. It's all right. Fencers don't do so much with clarity. I'd prefer some more of that. Clarity is, though, what I can't get. That's the problem. I kind of look around, looks around the room, and this place. How do you know, Father, when things are proceeding as they should? Great bravo. Look at me. I have confidence and style, and I can barely keep any of the people close to me safe. You heard about the business, yes? Of House Vorster?
I heard about 2 very exciting parties.
Exciting. Yes, a party what was nearly disastrous. Assassins, Father, who got in, who escaped my notice, who made it in and almost assassinated people right there in a party celebrating great works for the city. And here is House Vorster, which is trying to make its way to be seen again as the great house that it actually is. And here are these people relying upon us, and yet we can't even allow this gang, this group of common criminals to keep in from invade this. And they almost kill, Father. And at this point, I'm sort of standing up, right? I'm kind of like acting out, sort of semi-looking at him, but not really. And I'm like, and they almost killed, Father. They almost killed the people who were directly close to me. One of them in particular,
And it would have happened if you had been maybe 5 feet to this side or to that side, or if the gods had not granted you with the insight and the wariness to look at just the right place at just the right time, because you were there in time.
You speak of luck, not gods. If I had been where I should have been, then Lutrus would not have been almost killed, nor would any of the others around them. All of them, because of my arrogance and my belief that I understand the way things work, and here I am with my armor and sword, and it made no difference. And if I'm facing away the next time, if I'm looking to the left and the right, if I'm moved slightly 5 feet to the right or left, then they die anyway, Father. And then what was this for? The gods.
Are you alone responsible for all of the lives of House Vorster? That is a heavy weight to bear one alone.
That is what a great bravo is supposed to care about, yes?
I never went to war, but I have read a good bit of history, and I don't know of many armies of one. A household is many people, and we might think that it is arrogance to believe that all responsibility for some aspect of a house's safety falls on one person's shoulders. You have comrades, yes?
Yes, and they fulfilled their responsibilities the way that I could not. At least not until the end, when it was almost disastrous.
No person is strong every day all the time.
You are.
Oh, well, you don't see me every day all the time. I don't get around like I used to, and I don't always have a great answer when people come to me with questions, but they still come. I do my best, and every day I get up, I bake bread, I open the doors, and I try again. And here is where I would like to have you make a roll.
Okay.
And then depending on how this roll goes, we can flavor the scene, whether this is more or less relieving or effective for Carevis based on and then kind of you'll get to do that interpretation.
Okay.
So you've got 1 in spirit, 1 in mind, and 2 in body. So you're going to be rolling 1d in fortune.
Okay.
Or just /roll 1d6 in roll 20.
Is there a fortune link on the character sheet?
So underneath the spirit category, there's a roll fortune button on the far right-hand side of your sheet. You may have to expand it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's why. I was like, what part of the sheet? Come on. Okay, there it is. I was like, where the heck? Okay, so right. Okay, so roll fortune, and then you said, I said just 1. How many dice? Just 4? 1? 4?
1, because you have 1 action in mind and 1 in spirit. If there's 1 red dot to the left of the vertical bar in a category, then that's what you have.
So it just has the 1. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So that's a 2, which means you get to take 2 stress off. So it's not nothing, but based on how you've played the scene, it feels like, maybe Carevis is still feeling that weight. So Father Cartagano had just talked about like trying again every day.
Right. And so I say, it's what I want to do, is to try again another day, except you try and you work and you push and you act with honor. And it feels as if you are not alone, but there's so many of them, Father. There's this boy, this boy, Petros, he's a gang member, a criminal. Lutrus knew him, and we managed to convince him to turn to our side, yes, but here is one boy like this. How many hundreds, how many thousands, how many tens of thousands, young people and boys and girls, how many young people in the city, how many labor in poverty, how many do you bake bread for? Your single loaf, your 3 loaves, how much does that do for all of them?
It does more than, if I did not bake the bread, then fewer people would eat. I am one person. You are one person. We both have access to community and to resources. And we have the gods with us. When you feel tempted by some impulse, but you take hold of your emotion and you temper it, that is Javelli lending you his restraint. When you open your pocket to a beggar, that is Valus moving your heart to compassion. When you haggle for a deal, or when you find the right thing to bring home as a gift, Tumul is with you. And when you have to bring war and blood and steel, Rot is there, giving you strength to your hand. The gods are with us in every day, in little moments, not always grand revelations. We are none of us alone, even if the gods were not here, because you learned to fence from someone, you learned scripture from me, and so we are all a sum of the life we've lived and the people we have learned from. There are many ways in which you are never alone, Carevis. You do not have to be alone.
It is that I wish to help the others who are alone.
And that's why I minister. It is why I imagine that you come back, and that even if you are not sitting here when I minister to my flock, your donations come regularly, and through our efforts combined, more people are fed. I have learned not to take part in the great dance. It is far larger than I, even with my congregation behind me. But you are on that dance floor. And if you say and you feel that the world outside that floor is unjust, you have the platform to do something about it.
And I kind of so I take a deep breath, and the problem with you priests is that you're too damned clever, and you bake some passable bread, and it's some combination of cleverness and your passable baking. And I sort of look at the bread that I put on the plate, and I kind of pick it up again, and I say, I look down at the old man, and I say, I will go forth and try again. But Father, this place, you need to tell me. I can donate more. The house can do more. There are more people that need to hear from you. Not just a Bravo attempting to convince himself that he's not wasting his time. You need to let us help you spread the word. Perhaps get you an assistant in here, a bigger building, something.
There are many things that we could do, but I think for today, I will ask you to speak with someone in the house, perhaps, that you know has a good relationship with the Church of Plenty, and see if they will accept my proposal for better collaboration of our associated food kitchens and other efforts. There has been a schism older than I, and it's never been actually resolved. And so I do my little bit here and they do their bit there. But we know that work shared is work lightened. And if you are less tired at the end of the day, you can get up and work again the next. The 6 houses may not work together, but that does not mean that the people of the city cannot work together in some ways better than we already do. And I admit that some of that blame is mine, as I have nursed grudges and kept score. But perhaps calmer heads will prevail. Perhaps a new perspective is required from maybe that young boy who came up from somewhere in the city, I'm guessing somewhere not unlike the barracks here. He knows what it is like to be outside when the great nobles are dancing and feasting. So look to them.
And I nod, set my jaw, and I go over to the dais. I pick up the sword, sheath it. I put on all the armor, step by step, and then I come back and I put a hand on Father Cartagano's shoulder and I say, "At the very least, I can get you a bigger oven so you can bake more bread. And thank you. I will get them to have a new perspective. I swear it." And I turn and I stride out.
Okay. So that's a little bit longer than I think.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. That was wonderful because what it let me do is it let me go to my world building notes and I want to get the names of these gods.
Yeah. I figured we were building them up. So
into
I was
the
like,
fiction, right?
Yeah.
And when we're doing this kind of establishing work of setting relationships, in a prestige TV show, you get characters that are introduced in episode 2 and episode 3, right? But they can still be really important characters. So I'm happy to linger a bit on these scenes because I think we can still get through the downtime stuff. And then maybe you all are figuring out what errand you want to do next kind of between sessions, because I want to, give as much of a showcase as we can to all of you as lovely storytellers and performers. So that is a seek indulgence roll. It didn't go super great.
Yeah, I was hoping for a little more.
So when you make one of these downtime rolls, you can spend influence to increase your result level. But when you recover stress, increasing your result level is just getting 1 back. And that exchange is not very good because you could also spend a stress to get to roll again entirely.
Which reminds me, you said we do all have, except for Zelpha, who has 2, we have 1 influence at the moment that we could theoretically spend, or did I mishear that?
So the house has 4, and then I gave 1 to Zelpha as an individual because the house can only hold 4.
Okay, but individually we don't have any influence yet besides
correct.
Zelpha. Okay, all right. Well, then for stress, I will. I don't know. Maybe it's like a code word. Maybe people can just be like bread, and I'll be like instant less stress. Montage of bread breaking.
Well, that's a thing that I like about Girl by Moonlight by Andrew Gillis, another Forge in the Dark game. It's very different in a lot of ways, but by placing character relationships at the center in the way that it does, there's some ability to relieve stress for one another in a way that's different. Valloward, Valloward, the RPG. Wait, no. That's at least several years away.
Yeah, the expansion book
from the Valloward setting playset book.
Yeah.
In that's the first time I think any of us have talked about that as a possibility. So that would be cool, but that's not what we're doing right now. So I'm gonna go to the others and ask what you all would like to do. It may be worth your while to reduce stress, or maybe you want to kind of let it roll into the next session. Some of you may have your own individual projects or kind of pursuits or drives that you want to pursue. To do a long-term project, you basically say, here's a thing I want to accomplish in the fiction, and then we figure out how difficult that will be. And we basically set the size of a clock. Oh, okay. Doing this big thing that has a larger impact that maybe would take 10 segments. Doing something fairly small or just kind of using resources that you already have and arraying them in a particular way, maybe that only is a 4-tick clock. And then you fill that clock using downtime actions. And again, you can also reduce the exposure that the group has. And with almost any of these actions, you pick what action rating you're going to use, and then we talk about how that thing or how that action applies to whatever it is that we're doing. So, Brandon, as someone familiar with Forge in the Dark, can I come to you next?
I would also like to clear stress.
Okay.
I would also like to indulge, which also interests me narratively because my indulgence is obligation to other local Dialta in the area.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about what is Zelpha's Dialta community like? What shape does that take? How kind of out in the open are local Dialta about kind of claiming that heritage? Like what insider outsider angle do you want to play? Because like I'm very happy to kind of leave that authorship with you, and then we figure out what dynamic to play within that.
So the way that I have imagined it is this. The Dialta, being the local indigenous community of Vala Isle, is the local indigenous community of Vala Isle, and everything that all of the assumptions that you are making right now, hearing me say that, are true. Some of the struggles that take place in this space are they're overly policed and struggle with legal representation, which is particularly meaningful to Zelpha because that's why Zelpha went to school and learned law in the first place. But also, whenever they need any other kind of institutional assistance, Zelpha tries to make herself available to assist if somebody needs to apply for some, go through some official channel to get resources that allow them to continue to sustain themselves, or gather community resources in the ways that are necessary to help those people do those things. So on a regular basis, when the middle class community of Dialtans in their district or lower class Dialtans in extended districts need something that can only be resolved either through direct action or political engagement, someone will always recommend Zelpha, and Zelpha will always go out of her way to become available.
Okay, so is there like an individual or maybe a small group that we can zoom in on as kind of the, not necessarily the fixer or your like vice provider, but a contact that kind of would help you do that, whether that's someone who's a colleague or someone who has really thick connections within those communities and is the person who then reaches out to you?
So I actually have I've actually imagined this. So there's this old lady named Iara, Iara, who is known in a lot of Dialtan communities as everyone's aunt. And like is the one who regularly goes out of her way to recommend Zelpha whenever other people need things. Like she will just listen into other people's conversations in the market and go, "Oh, you're struggling with paying your bills? You should talk to Zelpha. Zelpha has no idea how to help you pay your bills, but she'll try." So Iara and Iara's grandson, Dinor, are not only people who regularly reach out to Zelpha and let Zelpha know that other people are looking for a certain kind of assistance, but whenever that requires gathering other hands, I know that I can also talk to Dinor about those things. Whenever I need like someone to help me build a house, because I don't know how to build a house, but I'm sure if I ask 20 people to build a house, they'll all know something. So yes.
Yeah, and is there a particular place where Zelpha kind of takes those meetings? You know, is it a Dialtan-owned restaurant or like tea shop or something else like that?
I like the idea that I have an office on top of something that should not have an office for official business. I'm thinking there's like a communal laundry.
I was actually thinking a laundry.
Yeah. Something about having to conduct business where everyone can smell soap feels so very strange to me, and I love it.
Yeah, and I think, a floor below, you can hear people singing as they're washing, because I think only the upper middle and upper classes would probably have access to magical clothes washing at scale.
Mhm.
And so maybe there is either one tool that makes it easier that is available in this laundromat, or they're washing it in the way that people without kind of this world's magic are washing. And so they're singing, they're talking, they are just kind of living their lives and like, well, I have to do this. I can't not do this. It's going to be a big part of my day. And so therefore it's a big part of all of my social relationships. And so what is your office like? Do you have like a table, a couple of chairs, and like some kind of food or drink situation?
It is a very fancy table and two of the rustiest, most broken chairs that you've ever seen in your life. There is a large, what is supposed to be a drinks tray, but the only drink there is one non-alcoholic Dialton beverage, and just like lots of very cheap snacks. Like I'm trying to be as hospitable as possible, but I work mostly pro bono, so you get crackers. It is very visible that there are lots of unsecured legal documents all around this room that I'm trying very, very hard to make sure that nothing very terrible happens to them, but I do not have storage like most other lawyers do.
So do you have like off the top of your head another Dialton name I could use for someone who's coming to you for help?
Kenis, Kenis.
Kenis. Okay, so Kenis is maybe 17. Kenis has the look of a teen who has grown a lot quickly and has not settled into like his adult situation, whether that is like bodily or socially. And so, the arms and legs are a little bit longer than I think maybe he would think that they are. So like a bit gawky, and his like shirt is too small. So he's kind of accidentally wearing a crop top, and wears it just fine, but there is like evidence of wear on the shirt as well, that it's like clearly you would guess that Kenis is coming to you from one of the poorer Dialton communities here within the city, and so he takes the steps on the outside of the back outside of the laundromat to get upstairs, gets to the top, looks at the neighbor buildings, and then turns around like very quickly, as if like kind of catching himself, and says, "You're Zelpha?"
Yes, that's me.
So Yara said to come and talk to you about my granny's rent.
Ah, yes.
So can I sit?
Oh, yes, go ahead. Do you want something to drink?
Yeah, I'm happy to have. Do you have a name for this drink?
It's called Maulir, Maulir. It's brewed from a bark of a local tree that now you can only get in some of the like overrun districts.
Okay.
So like it's actually very expensive to get, but I go out of my way for it because it's mine.
Cool. And yeah, so it's like I only have this on holidays, and like takes a really small sip and seems to savor it.
That's why it's here. You can't get home drawn Maulir anywhere other than a shop. So I have it especially for us.
Yeah, so my granny has this terrible landlord. It's not the same person as it was when she was there. She's been there for, I don't know, 30 years maybe. Since at least when my mom moved out. And the new landlord has changed their so she has to pay rent every 2 weeks instead of every month, and then changed the math. And I'm pretty sure that it's screwing her out of an extra week's worth of work every month. And so like that won't work, but she's got this like the buyout clause to leave the lease is also ridiculous. So and then like reaches into like pulls out like very, very cheap kind of paper that he has like taken notes on and hands it to you. And it's like basically copy like a hand copied version of sections of a contract, like a lease.
I take it while I'm looking at this document. All of these things look bad and unjust.
Yeah, and basically the challenge that you can relieve stress by addressing is, can you figure out this granny's rent situation and do something about it? And I think the doing something about it, we can either abstract or we can like walk through really quickly, but mechanically the thing that we're interested in is Zelpha's emotional investment and how much satisfaction or kind of relief she's getting from it. So let's go ahead and make that roll, and then we can play out the rest of the scene with that in mind.
Yes. So here's a delightful thing that I'm sure will please you very much, Mike. I have no dots in body.
Womp, womp. So when you have a 0 in an attribute, you roll 2 dice and you take the lower result instead of the higher. It's not great.
It's not.
So Brandon's going to be rolling 2d6, and we're going to take the lower number.
At least the lower number is a 5.
Wow. Hey Brandon.
That's lovely. Cool.
How many stress do you have?
4.
So if you
I have overindulged.
So if you remove 5 stress and you have 4, you overindulge. So why don't you go ahead and get rid of those stress? You might need to use them soon. Let's go and look at the rules for overindulgence in Court of Blades. So that's page 140 for our reference. So here are your options. You can attract trouble and you roll an additional engagement. You can brag about your exploits and take exposure. I think brag about your exploits here would probably be more like our herd talking about providing free legal aid and therefore undermining various moneyed powers' ability to extract wealth from people. Lost, your character vanishes for a few weeks. Play a different character until this one returns from their bender, spree, or obligation. Tapped, your current source becomes unavailable. You'll have to fix things before you can indulge again. Or a favor, you lose a downtime action to help someone, or cannot you help someone and you cannot indulge again until you have done so. So one way that we could express this as this is going to take a lot of work over time, and you're going to lose a downtime action to finish that out. Or we look at some of these other ones. What sounds good to you?
So I specifically picked the obligation that I did, not only because I like playing characters who like to help people, but because it means tapped is not an option, because I'm not asking other people for things, they're asking me. So I want, while I genuinely like bragging as an overindulgence consequence because it's just a lot of drama, we are at a point very early in the game where it would be very unfortunate for us to have the amount of exposure that we presently do, so I'd like to avoid that. But I do like the drama of attracting trouble.
Okay. So
I want to be clear. I want to clarify that because it hasn't come up as often in other Blades games that we've played. Will that entanglement be specifically to me, or will it still engage the rest of the coterie?
So I will point it at you, but the splash damage may hit the rest of the group. Cool. Is how I'll put that.
I like this. I have put all of my friends in danger.
So why don't you roll me 1d6?
Okay, here is a 1d6 for tomorrow coming right up.
Okay, on a 4. So that is reprisal. A house minor with which you currently have negative relations stages an errand of revenge. Address it and suffer -1 relation, but gain +2 influence, or let the indignity lie and suffer -2 influence. So let's look at our faction relationships here real quick.
Is there a landlord faction?
So the house that you have negative relationship with, the house minor, is the Valloward Rail Association. And I think we could probably extend this to the outsiders. So it could be the voice staging an errand of reprisal. Is anything coming to mind for you here? Otherwise, I will probably just do something that will be trouble for everyone, and you'll have to deal with it. Like obviously, the like landlord pushes back thing is a very easy option. So another place we could look is for some faction that we think would be aligned with landlords in that part of the city. So that might be.
So I actually think, like, in the history of creating settlements, it is very easy to create an argument that the Valloward Rail Association does have a connection with communities of people who control land and its engagement as settlement, because that's how they create the reason why a road should be where it is. And they probably have, it's very easy to say, they're the people who have beef with us because they're the people who have been sent by the people who also have beef with us to fight, because the Rail Association can't fight.
Right. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to say that those landlords over the next week or so pull some bullshit and evict an entire apartment building of porters. The porters
I am particularly attached to that.
You have a +2 relationship with. So for people who have not watched The Case of the Cindered Seal, the porters were an important faction in that. Different city, different porters, but the love is still there. So yeah, I think the porters, maybe there is a notable subsection of porters who are Dialton, and maybe not. Maybe it's just that landlord finds out who you are, talks to some of the rich people that they know, and the thing that lined up was, oh, well, I want to screw these people over anyway, and if I do it now, I can do it in such a way that is clearly me thumbing my nose at House Vorster and this coterie and inviting them to do something about it. So I'm going to say, if you are not able to do something about this eviction, you're going to lose 1 status with the porters. You don't have to do it, or if you do it this downtime, that's great. If you can't do it until next downtime, I think you may still be able to save that status, but the complications will have accumulated. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start a clock that is basically more trouble for porters. So I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to title it.
Noted. How such fun. I'm so glad I have this extra influence now. I may just have to spend it immediately.
All right, so this is going to be a clock called Porter Poverty, and it's going to, I'm going to tick it once now, and then I'm going to tick it every downtime phase that it's unresolved. If it gets to 4, things will go very poorly for the porters. So that's downtime. You got rid of your stress, though.
I did. I'm beginning to wish I just kept being stressed. So I'm more stressed now.
Let's jump back a little bit into the middle. And can you give me like a short montage of Zelpha working, this kind of lease case, so that we can kind of get it in our mind's eye before we then see this backlash that we know is coming.
The scene montage includes a lot of me referring to documents, which opens with me revealing that a lot of the official documents in my office are covered in dust and don't have folders and are being held together by string. But I thumb through a lot of the old legal texts that I have about what the doctrines on landholding and renting are supposed to be. Make very stern notes about all of the ways in which this is not only unjust but purely illegal. I briefly talk to Kenneth's grandmother and other renters in the area to get a sense of whether that's happening to them as well. And it is. And it's all very tiring and frustrating. And I'm in the middle of preparing a legal brief that recognizes that this is unjust and names the landlords responsible when the porters lose their home.
Yeah, and so if I would say that if Zelpha goes to the kind of council of the dance, the kind of high legal body of the city, or one of the like kind of satellite offices throughout the city, so where it's, you know, not necessarily all in one building, there would be a like a fairly beefy Valloward kind of clearly not D'Alton woman with a it's a grown-up sized version of a stickball stick for, you know, for kids, except it's like adult baseball sized. And as soon as you come into sight, she's just staring straight through Zelpha with kind of aggressive intent. So this is me pointing a threat at Zelpha as a specific incarnation of this BS. And we don't necessarily have to linger in this scene, but I wanted to put some heat on Zelpha specifically here. And that I think she quickly gets the sense that a faction that doesn't like her has become aware of how she operates. And so that's going to make things difficult for you.
When I notice that someone is staring at me, I wave very carefully, but I am still walking very quickly, as if I do not want to be assaulted in the middle of the street by a stranger.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a whole scene, but I'm not sure that this person necessarily lets you go. So if she gets in your way, how are you going to respond? So like there's a door and she's stepped in front of it, still looking at you.
I wait for a beat and then I say, I'm sure this is supposed to be a scene, but if you make it now, you're not going to have any fun later. If that's any appeasement at all.
This office is closed.
This last.
You should probably go somewhere else. The office is clearly not closed.
I know what a closed door looks like. That's not it.
I was told you're smart, but maybe you're not wise.
I could have told you both. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Are you going to try and get through? And if so, how?
Double axe handle.
How tall is this person?
6'3" and
so definitely taller than me.
Yeah, I would say this woman is like I don't know how tall rugby players get, but imagine like a 6'2" fairly beefy woman who plays rugby.
And she's alone. So I I start screaming in Dialton that I am being harassed.
Okay. What action would that be, and what is your kind of ultimate intent?
I mean, my ultimate intent is if we're going to make a scene, I want to make a scene. I want other people to witness that this is happening while not knowing the entire context.
So if
so
it
that
works,
other local Dialta will immediately intervene, and while they're intervening, I just slip behind this lady and go back into the office.
okay. So if you succeed, you get through.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think I'm curious what action this is. Is this consort?
This is Sway specifically refers to influencing with guile. And since I am essentially, well, I mean, it's the truth, but it's an exaggeration of the truth, which counts as guile. So I think it should be Sway.
Okay. I think with Sway, this is going to be risky standard.
Okay.
So this is an example of downtime flowing into free play, where the downtime created a fictional context where there was conflict and tension. And so we're going to make this roll and see how that goes. So with a 2 and
I got
a 1,
2 and a 1.
She wasn't alone. You call out in Dialton, and 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and within 30 to 45 seconds, you've got a crowd, and then 2 lines of 6 kind of walk into view from each side, and everybody in those lines has one of those same sticks. And this is going to get really messy if you keep pressing the matter. So you can press forward in a desperate situation, or you can kind of give up, disperse, or something like that.
I guess I'm good. I don't want a fight. I don't want any of the other locals to be assaulted. So I say very meekly, you've gotten your wish, but this is going to be filed one way or another. So I hope you're prepared to stand here every day for the rest of your days.
As long as I get paid.
I hope it's by the hour, and I walk away.
Yep. So
I hate it. I hate this so much.
A question I'm going to ask you, Brandon, is what faction is this landlord connected to? If you're going to fight back against them, you're probably going to need more information. So that could easily be a long-term project, depending on how you want to approach this.
I already wanted to conduct an intrigue, so I guess we're gonna come back to that as I reevaluate my choices. But this is delightful, and what I mean by delightful is I hate that I leaned into corruption and then got corruption.
I'm just gonna take a couple of quick notes, since 99% of that was improvised, because that's just how these games operate. Fantastic. So that's Indulge Vice. For Premee and Rhiannon, you don't necessarily have to Indulge Vice if you don't want to. Based on that list of actions, what do you think would be Lutrus or Jensia's priority?
I think for Lutrus, what I was thinking was reduce exposure.
Okay, yeah.
And I noticed on the sheet it says that can also include mollifying the house. And since we more or less on our own made kind of a unilateral choice to adopt a former gangster,
right?
It's possible that there are individuals or organizations in the house who don't like that we did that, don't like that we didn't ask, and maybe are looking for reasons to either get rid of Petros or, oh hi, pardon, move, or assure his loyalty or turn him into a useful tool in some way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think you can definitely reduce exposure along that angle. What action do you think Lutrus is using to do this here?
Is he better from being violently stabbed in the last engagement?
What is your harm situation?
I think I got poked. I don't remember how Petros ended up. I think he got stabbed.
So yes, Petros did get stabbed. I think he had the equivalent of level 2 harm. And so I think he will recover much more quickly because you are House Vorster. And one of your house abilities is that kind of your cohorts and retainers recover at double speed.
Okay. Because I figure if I can kind of train him, try to get him up to house standard, maybe introduce him to the leader of the guards here,
Okay.
Our domestic guards here, and kind of win that person around, maybe Petros's position as well as my position, because I think at this point, probably the house guards, who have only really sort of tolerated me, are looking at us the same way. Like, look at these jumped up little gutter upstarts working for a great house. I bet they're just waiting to betray us or use our name for their own benefit or something cheap and tacky like that. So I want to convince them that I'm legit, and I want to convince them that Petros is legit and he's an asset, not a liability.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I could see that being command, consort, or sway, depending on which way you want to flavor that, or what seems most appropriate for kind of how Petros operates.
I'm thinking that's probably consort.
Yeah. Consort makes a lot of sense
I think.
within the house, because it's about managing existing relationships, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so your consort is 2, which is great. For a downtime action, you can roll the 2 dice. And then if your highest is a 1 to 3, you'll reduce 1 exposure. A 4 or 5 would let you reduce 2. A 6 would let you reduce 3. If you get a crit, you get to reduce 5. This is one of the downtime actions when someone can help you. So I wonder, does Lutrus enlist someone in trying to sell the house on why bringing Petros in is a good idea and kind of getting him acclimated?
Someone in my coterie or just someone in the house? In
your coterie or a contact on your sheet or on the house sheet. If you do so, then they can give you a +1d. And if it's a player character, they don't have to spend stress. We just have to figure out how they're contributing.
Okay. I would like to throw in a new person, maybe the leader of the guards.
Sure.
Who doesn't exist yet. Oops. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think if we're detailing a new NPC and they're not a contact or fellow PC, you're not going to get a bonus die for it, but it will let us detail this person, which is useful.
Okay. Okay. Well, the guards, the captain of the guards' name is Galliani.
Galliani. Okay.
And he doesn't like me. He's never made that a secret. He puts up with me because he likes Carevis. Because they're both, they consider themselves both bravos, except Galliani's very quiet about it. So he's the person I have to win over to my side by sort of smushing Petros into like the cookie cutter stamp of what I think Galliani will like. Otherwise, I think he'll make our lives difficult.
Okay. So yeah, why don't you make that consort roll? And we'll see how well it goes. The nice thing about these downtime actions is you will get some progress regardless. You can't get nothing.
I would like something. Is that roll fortune or is that just roll something?
You can do roll fortune with 2 dice because this does not have a position or an effect.
Okay, number of dice 2.
That's
submit.
because your consort is 2. Okay, so
Did
on
that
a 2,
work?
yep, it looks like there's a 2 and a 3. So when your highest is a 3 or lower, you're going to get 1 from that. You can spend an influence to take that from 1 to 2, but you could also spend an influence to do the same action again and get to roll again. So in a lot of these cases, it may be better to do the action again rather than increasing the effect. But you did the thing, and so I'm going to go to the house sheet and I'm going to reduce exposure by 1. And
Better
I
than
think,
nothing.
yeah, I think Galliani, so an immediate difficulty with selling Galliani on Petros is that Petros is still injured. And
Yeah.
so you can't have Petros show off the skills that he does have for the most part. And so what we get is Galliani grilling Petros in the infirmary.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to do my best. I've brought in, for example, a voice coach that that Zelpha recommended to reduce Petros's, low accent. I've got him new clothes. Unfortunately, he can't wear them while he's in the infirmary bed.
Right.
I've made sure that he's like pressure washed with scented soap. We gave him a haircut.
Right.
I'm aiming for respectability here.
Yeah, and the house physician Dahlia is helping you along the way. Dahlia Porter was a medical prodigy, kind of plucked from Academy Valor and put into service. If she had not been pulled up by the house, she would likely be in another couple of years getting some prestigious medical posting. So you have not quite Doogie Howser, but sort of Doogie Howser in Dahlia Porter, who is a like in our world would be a Black woman with kind of light brown skin and hair in kind of locks, like up in a back in a bun to kind of be out of her hair. And she has very good bedside manner and zero interest in house politics.
That's handy.
So she's like, yeah, like if Petros can fit in, that's better for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about like getting one over on Galliani, even as in the montage we see Galliani kind of glowering from the door as like Lutrus is trying to like coach Petros and kind of make a bit of an in.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey Dahlia, fix him quick.
I'm doing my very best, and he's young and he's healthy, but there's only so much I can do for a stab to the midsection, unless you would like to request that the house allot some more substantial resources from the apothecary's stores.
Yeah,
Or
I don't feel like my position's such that I can ask for that for him at the moment, unfortunately. So let's just keep this under our hat. Do your best. Thank you so much for attending him. And I know you're not doing this for, the house. You're doing it because he's a patient.
But what I'll say is, I would imagine that Jensia has some access to those apothecary's resources as well.
I didn't know that.
Or maybe in a better position to have them allotted, being the house's snack.
Thank you for letting me know. That's a useful thing to know.
And if so, if you could ask her to get some opal while she's at it.
Yeah, I will do that.
And so like I think having just like scrubs or just like Renaissance doctor outfit is not as interesting. And so I think she's wearing something that's identifiably like a physician's like kind of coat.
Yeah.
For the same reason that, physicians wear scrubs, but they're it's in-house colors. And she has very simple earrings that are small, like versions of the house signet. That I think were a gift to her from one of the kind of blooded members of the house when she was inducted. Okay, so that lets us establish some characters and talk a little bit about that. I'm going to go now to Rhiannon. What do you think would Jensia's kind of primary agenda be in terms of downtime?
So she has sort of two aspects to it. She's a tag-alonger. So if she sees things to tag along with, she'll do that. But if there's nothing immediately happening, I think she would go train for her thing that she would be doing on her own. And she would, if other people want to like notice that happening, that's cool. But she would automatically think of like just training on her own. She would not think to ask for help training.
Sure. So when you train, you pick which attribute you're training, and we talk about what the training looks like, and then you mark 1 XP in that attribute without having to deal with the rest of the XP system. There are house upgrades that you can get that will turn that from 1 XP to 2 XP, and those are per category. So you might have the upgrade for mind training that maybe is like a well-kept library, or like a staff librarian who you can go to for your training. Body training might be like a dedicated like workout room for the coterie, because you all let's see, do we have this? You don't have the private apartments upgrade, which means that that each of your characters lives somewhere else and then works in the house. So maybe some of your training could be even kind of in your own space. What do you think that looks like for Jensia?
I think I was actually thinking she probably would want to borrow something at the house to have a bigger space, because she's going to have somewhere like really super small, studio type of space and so she wants to do magic spirit training. And so she would want to borrow a corner of what would normally be like a practice yard for, normal weapons, that when it's quiet and there's nobody there, she's like sneaking out so that she has like a big space to play with for her training.
Yeah. And does this is there like a visual or sensory manifestation of this magical kind of training? And what skill or what end is Jensia pursuing in this training?
So it's channel. Is that what you mean?
I think fictionally, like, is she trying to like manifest elemental things? Is she doing divination? Like, what type of magical effect, and what does it look, feel, sound, or taste like?
Sure. So what I was thinking is that the last fight is really on her mind. And so what she's going to do is try to really like perfect the technique she tried to use and then it didn't work. So what she's going to be doing is that she'll carefully lay out like just sort of like, I don't know, 5-10 feet of a line on the ground. She'll do this whole setup with components and whatever, and then she will pick it up and it will become sort of this white light sort of ribbon. And she'll have set up sort of like a kind of a practice dummy or something that you'd usually be wailing on with a sword, and she will be like throwing the rope to try to get it to kind of wrap around the feet of the dummy. And what she's trying to do is that the ropes they start very thick because the trouble was that the one was cut. So they start really thick and they're hard to lift and they don't throw like at all. And so she is each time she makes a new one, she makes it thinner to try to sort of figure out what the sweet spot is between maneuverability, but some thickness to make it harder to cut or block.
Okay. So Brandon, I'm going to ask, because Zelpha also has channel, would you like to join this scene?
I would.
If that's cool with you, Rhiannon.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Okay, so
sounds delightfully messy. I love it.
Yeah, how does Zelpha come upon this scene? And because one of the things I was curious about when we had Rhiannon able to join us to play a knack is, what what are the differences in approaches to and philosophies about magic between these characters?
So the thing that I think I am intrigued by the most is I'm responsible in part for bringing Jensia into this house, and we talk about we talk about our magical understanding a lot in the context of working on the House Vorster and making sure that we're fulfilling House Vorster's intentions as deeply as possible. Which means that we both make a lot of compromises when it comes to the house. But in private, I have a lot of very strong feelings about the Alton magic versus Valloward magic. Which I'm not sure do we agree very strongly on what is Jensia's opinion on the Alton magic being the only true, valid, and responsible form of magic in the entire universe?
So Jensia's opinion, and if it's okay with you, I will say that you haven't really seen Jensia like ever like practicing at all. Like she talks about it a lot, but she hasn't like used it much around you other than the errand. So her opinion is that whatever works, works. And so she's not interested in sort of even the distinctions. She's just sort of like, I'll just use whatever, it's cool. But she understands that like there's something behind there and it's important, but it's very much sort of like she nods along, but you can tell that she's just going to be like, nope, I'm just going to use whatever I can.
Mm-hmm. I like this a lot. This is exactly the dichotomy that I wanted us to go for. Because then I imagine that we're prone to having conflict about methodology, but because I've never seen you perform before, I'm still like, oh, you'll get it out of your system when you realize Valloward magic isn't worth anything.
So I'm curious, Brandon, for Zelpha, how would this work if it was being done in the D'Alton paradigm?
A lot of divination in particular would require some manner of direct connection to like a physical source. Like if you want to find out about a person, you need something that is close to that person. The shorthand is always the dirt that someone has stepped on. But that means you need to know where someone's walking all the time. It's actually less convenient, but it is incredibly potent as a result. So yes, it requires like either some very strong natural connection or some strong connection to the person or thing that you're attempting to discover about, which is very complicated to discover the resources necessary for, but
right.
So to remind me, what exactly are you looking to discover, Jensia?
Is she coming upon Jensia while she's practicing?
Yeah, I think I'm really just storming your space. I'm going, I got the impression that you were going to do some magic, and I just wanted to actually see you do it since we've only spoken about theory for 1.5 years now.
So she's got one of the ropes on the ground like ready to go. And so she sort of like immediately stops and is like, well, well, I mean, you can't argue with the results, can you? The dummy looks very sort of like knocked around and like kind of burned a little bit.
I mean, I can argue with the results. I'm still trying to determine what the results are.
She picks up the rope, and it's sort of like medium size, so it doesn't really like do a really beautiful kind of whip motion or anything like that, but she does get it where she can get it to like at least go and hit the dummy, and it kind of like wraps around, and then the dummy it was about to tip, but it's like frozen in place, so it can't move.
I guess that's working enough. it still seems very less than ideal.
Yeah, I think because Jensia was trying to do something very much in the moment, and it seems like that is hard to do in general. So this may be something that is hard in both paradigms, because based on what Brandon described, it seemed like you could maybe set a trap that would do this if you had some idea of who was coming, or if you're really focusing on the space. But it wouldn't necessarily be easy to do if you got ambushed by someone in a like part of the town that you didn't know. And so I'm curious, if it's hard for both approaches, what is that like? What does that spark in Zelpha?
Okay. This looks like it's close to something. It looks like I admire your attempt. I think this is useful in certain circumstances. I think if you're trying to apply a ward or secure yourself against a potential threat, this is actually good enough compared to a lot of other options. It does look like it has the potential for feedback, but I don't know what that feedback might look like yet. Are you sure that this is good enough for you, Jensia?
Well, just the feeling of it is, that's why I'm doing it. I want the feeling to be right. And so if you have some suggestions, certainly I'll listen to them, but I don't, it's the feel. And she seems very sort of like getting more and more worked up about how she doesn't have the words to, which is in contrast to when she's talking about magical theory. She can like spout it all day, but when she's talking about the actual magic, like the words are kind of leaving her.
Yeah, like if this works perfectly, do you have like does the rope almost feel like an extension of your body, where you can feel all the way through to deliver the magic? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, so that it's less about like having carefully made it on the ground and more about once you've picked it up, what she can sort of then continue to do with it. So.
Okay, I know what I need you to do then. Do it to me. I'm sure I'll be fine. Whatever it is you're going for, aim it at me. Let's see.
All right. Rhiannon, I'd love to invite you to make this as a fortune roll.
Okay. I will. So
six.
I'm guessing this is channel, but the player always gets to decide.
Yeah. So the number of dice is 2.
Yeah, if that's how many you have in channel.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on a 4 or 5, why does it work better this time? And that's a question to both of you.
I think that here's what I'm thinking maybe happens is that she picks it up, but then she kind of almost chokes for a second. So she's holding on to it longer. She doesn't let it go. And then when she does sort of implement it to sort of wrap around Zelpha's ankles, she also hangs on to it to sort of make sure that she keeps the sort of strength of it gentle.
Right.
And so it forces her to keep the connection the whole time.
Okay. So that's true. Zelpha, why does it work that's also true from Zelpha's point of view?
I think it's also true because I mean, this is essentially what Jensia has also said, but I think that it's also true because at this moment, it's not about trying to figure out whether it's going to work. It's about attempting to prove to me that it's going to work.
Do you think it would work better, or it works better because Jensia and Zelpha have a relationship, collegial?
Mm-hmm.
Because you had talked about like some of that, like knowing the person thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's also a matter of like in this particular instance, um, there is some kind of emotional connection there that is also very valuable. That it's not just that we know each other; it's that um, the engagement here is still somewhat confrontational, but between colleagues.
Right. Okay.
So, what exactly happens to me in this moment?
I was thinking like just your muscles like lock up, and so you can't move.
My eyes are moving very frantically. I'm trying to send you a message to please let me go, but I cannot move my jaw.
It's just like SOS with your eyes, like
Well, I don't think she would hold it very long.
Yeah.
So she release you.
So yeah, and then what's that last beat of Zelpha's reaction as we wrap this scene?
I collapse to the ground, and then I get back up very quickly, dust myself off as if nothing has happened. And I put a hand on Jensia's shoulder and I say, the reason why I brought you to this house, the reason why I trust you enough to give you a chance to do this work, is because you feel so strongly. I've worked with dozens of people who know all the books and can recite dozens of spells and instructions off the top of their head very easily. I love that you can't, because there is something truer than just words and rules to you. And if that means that you get to do a thing that is not what I consider natural or pure, I admire that it works. But maybe try some Dialton stuff? Please. I can get you some bark rope if you want. I'm sure it will be even more potent. In fact, I'm going to leave you to continue to practice. But I like what I'm seeing. I'm sure that will be very useful in a future confrontation.
Okay.
Once you continue feeling it like this.
I'm going to declare GM fiat that when you have somebody helping you do training, you mark an extra XP. So go ahead and mark a second XP in spirit. I don't know that the book says this, but there should be. It should be something like
I
that.
like it too.
Rebel Crown has a thing where you can help someone else train, but then it has a whole different system. So whatever. So that's that. That's some lovely scenes with these fabulous characters. We were due to take a break a bit ago, but we had lots of fun stuff rolling. So let's say that we're going to take a quick break for 5, maybe 10 minutes so that all of the players here can attend to various needs. And a break for us is a break for you, as Brandon says in Fractal Spire streams. So please take care of yourself and your own needs, and then stick around to join us for the rest of this downtime session of Court of Blades Valloward, a Speculate / Arvin Elleron joint production.
And before we go on break, by the way, chat, check out that Twitter feed, because remember, Speculate fundraiser tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So please retweet, let people know. And yeah, very excited for more of this. We'll be right back. Stick around. Okay. So, welcome back, all. We are back from break, and just make sure that I have everyone unmuted that's supposed to be. Yes, I do. All right, and let me also make sure that I have that in the right spot, and I do, and I will bring them over there to reveal our crew. And yes, I mentioned this already, but exceptionally good news out of both Senate and governor's races. Just as a quick note for everybody, every Secretary of State candidate that claimed that that denied the election has now lost. So it was very nice to see a affirmation of democracy for once, collectively. So continued good job, Gen Z folks. Very good last 45 minutes for democracy and bad last 45 minutes for Republicans, but I repeat myself. Anyway, I will hand things back over to Mike as we have our own way of conducting ourselves and fighting the man. Hashtag save the porters. Over to you, Mike.
We're possibly 2 sessions from Zelpha concretizing social movements into the Valloward DSA.
Yeah. Hey, listen, sign me up. I mean, you know, we're all about it, right?
Well, we're gonna play the house that's like deeply invested in tradition, and they're very much a like establishment house. 6 sessions later.
House revolt now, right?
Yeah.
I like this a lot, obviously.
We will have to play to find out what happens, as they say in this tradition of game. So we are back with more of Court of Blades Valloward, our actual play series in the setting that we have all created together collaboratively. And I am going to ask our players who has their second downtime action ready that they would like to do. I remind you that you have quite a bit of exposure still.
Well, Jensia is going to tag along. I'll say that right now.
Okay.
So if somebody has some idea for reducing exposure, she is there. She will help.
In answer to that question, how many of the how do I put this question? The party, the celebration, which the assassins of the Eels attempted to evade, successfully evaded, that had pretty much all the other houses, yes? They had representatives of all the other houses that this thing. Okay. So then my suggestion would be, looking at where things stand, is it fair to say that we have a decent connection with either House Greymist or House Fairest, where we could go to one of those? And I'm thinking of that largely because there's overlap there in terms of the kind of the sort of nature of each of those houses. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we could go to one of them and basically try to smooth things over or, hey, have you seen the latest point, how we destroyed the Eels? Because that's what we're about, all about security, So
I think the way the Great Dance operates, you can make an appointment to call on somebody, at least in any of the great houses.
Okay.
And so that type of like schmoozing, smoothing things over, 100% within bounds. The trick is that whoever you're going and talking to will also have their agenda with regards to House Vorster.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but mechanically as downtime, you can do this and have that be reduce exposure.
Now I have a question, which I would put to the group. If the 4 of us, say, collectively and did a downtime making amends / reducing exposure, could we substantially reduce the exposure because by our powers combined we are Captain Planet? Maybe.
I would be happy for 2 or more PCs to each use their action on reduce exposure.
Okay.
And then each PC gets to roll, and it can be part of one scene.
What do y'all think? I mean, I don't want to take away from anyone individual. It seems that I was just like, hey, let's all make amends. let's.
No, totally. Because mine was going to be something related to reducing exposure as well. But I was also going to ask our dancing master, is there like an actual city administration, like a police setup, the city guard setup or whatever? And what are their feelings about the great houses taking justice into their own hands and doing things like, for example, the extrajudicial killing of a gang member at a party? Do they have thoughts on that? Is there some way we can mollify them? Can we say, like, the next time we're definitely going to hand them over to you? Or
Yeah.
There won't be a next time?
So let's see. Do I have the city watch down?
We're like the block watch, right? Like we're taking some pressure off the police by just.
I feel like this is very much a case of like someone coming to Buckingham Palace and the Queen just like stabbing them in the neck.
Well, if they try to invade, we want the Queen to stab them in the neck,
Yeah, but like the city of London has police officers too, and they're going to be like, what if you did not do that?
Yes, that's fair.
I think
yes.
The watches...
We have a court system, they're going to say. You're the Queen, I know, but...
Turn in your badge. You're all vigilantes, yeah. Yeah.
I think the watch's general approach in Valloward is probably mostly one where the house's business gets to stay their own, as long as it does not disturb the peace more broadly. So a big to-do on the Vorster compound, not as much of a problem as if there'd been a brawl in the middle of a plaza 5 streets away.
Okay, so in that case, I would like to go with the other houses. Oh, sorry, go on.
Just to clarify, that what you're saying is a couple stabbings are fine, but turf war is off the table.
Yeah, that can't be allowed.
Cool.
Yeah, keep your skullduggery under, like, keep your shit under control. Like, don't make problems for me. I don't want to have to deal with your crap because I don't care which of you is on top. My responsibility is to make sure that, like, ultimately that money keeps flowing through Valloward and that, like, civic society operates is what they care about, because that's what keeps them paid and keeps them in power. So I have added the Watch as a tier 2 faction in Houses Minor because I apparently took the Ilrian City Watch off that list and then never replaced them with Valloward City Watch. I briefly considered putting the Watch as a subsection of the Public Works faction, but it's worth having them as their own thing. The Public Works version would be if Valloward was like a truly non-carceral system.
Which we are not.
No, we're not there.
We have dungeons.
We know that we have dungeons. We established this last time. That's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, I do think we should go maybe to 1 or 2 of the other houses to make amends and reduce our exposure and, say that we're heroes and like good people.
Yeah, so I think the houses that like are probably the control public opinion the most will be Grey Mist because they're at the top, and then Corinne and Sapphire because they have the information / intelligence strength, and so like control over flow of information is important for all of them. So I might suggest any of those as people to go to, but it's really up to you. And then I think we'll figure out how to frame a short scene that is you making that pitch, and we'll do the roll and we'll see how that goes.
We thought Sapphire was behind the Eels, didn't we? So that seems either extra dramatic, or maybe we don't want to do that for the reducing exposure.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
that
go
would be
there. There's a
pretty
big
fun,
fight. It increases the exposure double. We're like, all right, we've done our work here. Walk away, flames behind us. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe if that's the case, then Grey Mist. Well, here's my thought. If Grey Mist is basically the highest ranked house, right? It's the only tier 5 house. Then there's an argument to be made that if we can mollify or whatever Grey Mist, that might trickle down-ish. Even though that's a failed economic theory, but that might drop down a little bit into other houses where at least people would know, right? They would know that we went there and that Grey Mist was not like, publicly pissed off as much. And that probably helps in terms of efficiency, or all 4 of us go to 4 different houses. But I feel like, again, I just have this sense that all 4 of us together might provide more of a, I don't know, oomph when it comes to this thing. So,
yeah, because then we look like a delegation.
Right.
And it looks more official than just like, with the ambassador showing up by themselves with no other people around them.
Right.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I think you can definitely get an appointment with someone at House Grey Mist. I think you're going to end up getting a tea with like a third son. So not perhaps relative power equivalent to Caitlin Vorster. So power, but you're not like, there's several steps above this person that you're not being brought to speak to. You are held at arm's length. That's in a notable fashion.
We'll shout so everyone in the other rooms also hear. Well, listen, this is what we think. Okay, no, that's fine.
And so again, House Grey Mist, their colors are green and gold, and House Grey Mist, they really flaunt and put their Vallowardness first and foremost, that they're not just of this settlement, they are more recent a creation than Corinne or Vorster or even Fairest, because they emerged as a major force after Ardcraft was kind of unleashed with the earthquake, and they are the ones that raised that huge palace. And that is where House Grey Mist kind of makes their seat. And so as you go to visit them, we see this grand, like intricate, multi-tiered stone earthen building that like towers over everything around it, to the point where it's an eyesore, but it's so pretty. It's not really an eyesore, but it's also just preposterously big.
And I say, I'm just kind of like, it's compensation. Okay, so, and it's the 4 of us. Do we have a retinue? Like, have we brought? And also, is Petros still healing and so on? I mean, I guess we wouldn't bring Petros anyway. It should be the 4 of us, and like, I don't know. Do we want a retinue of? Do we want an honor guard, behind us, or do we just want the 4 of us?
The honor guard might be nice in terms of appearances. Like, it just looks nice if we all show up wearing the house colors, and there's like a couple of extra people to stand around and be useless. It shows the power of our house if we can pay them to just come with us.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jensia has an idea. Let me know if this is possible. She could suggest that she creates the illusion of a retinue in a way where it can be noticeable as an illusion. And so we sort of have the importance of having a retinue, but then we're showing off our magical abilities.
Is there a worry, though, that they're like, you can't even afford a legit retinue, so here's the fake magic retinue? I mean, I don't know. I'm anyone that has to build a building like 5 stories too high because they're compensating, who knows what they want,
Maybe if we just bring like 4 extra people in uniform. Like 4 respectable, nice-looking guards or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever your approach is, you can sell it, and that's going to be part of your pitch, right? And because I'm going to want to know how exactly are you making this good? Is it about giving them individual time? Is it about, acknowledging that they were wronged, kind of that their safety was put into peril? Like, I kind of want to hear the pitch from you all.
Okay. I feel like Jensia will be really helpful with that, actually, because Jensia, part of what I'm imagining is you doing something along the lines of like, so here's what we found out about these ones. Here's how we knew what they were going to do. Here's how my magic worked to both protect people and also be aware that they had something else going on. Like, basically be like, show like we're like uber competent, right? And just be like, and I feel like that's going to be Jensia's particular thing, because clearly my uber competence involved as the Bravo is just like, right. So if we encourage them to come raid us, like I was mine was the, go F yourself, the Eels, which I did with intention, but still. So I feel like Jensia could do some of that. And also Zelpha, I assume, is going to be like fast talking this whole business. Like I expect Zelpha is going to be like, here, let me explain why this is awesome for you. Type of thing.
Yeah, I think the other thing we can appeal to as well is to be like, the way this whole thing started is that someone tried to assassinate an heir of that house like you. How would you feel if someone came into your house and did that? So obviously, it wasn't the case that we could just let it lie or ignore it.
And the people who came after us will also come after Grey Mist, because we don't think that Grey Mist was behind it, right? So
yeah.
And,
So,
and also, and instability
be,
is bad for business anyway. So,
and instability is bad for business. Yeah.
So Jensia's question is what the rest of you think about whether her approach should be, when she talks about the magic, to make it more of a tutoring explanation where she is putting it at a level where her audience like really gets it, or if she should do the sort of like grad student question in a lecture where you are proving the jargon that you know in how you phrase it, and there is no communication that is actually trying to happen here. And she can do either. She's fluent in both, but she wants to know which way we want to go.
So I think
I like the inherent power play of assuming that your audience knows what you're telling them when you know that they don't. Because then they have to either confirm that they don't know or assume anyway.
Sure. I think one or another of you would know kind of when you are told that you're going to be meeting with Jevli Grey Mist, the third daughter. That the thing that you know about her is that she's really obsessed with fashion. That's kind of the top line gossip. That's like in the House of Vorster's Batman files. That's like the first line.
Well, it won't be hard to go over her head then.
Fashion. Well, all right. I think we got this. I think can Jensia add a little bit of little. Can we glam it up both both fashion wise and also magic wise for the fashion wise, if you know what I'm saying? Like let's a little bit of glamour. Let's get a little bit of added boost.
Okay.
To the look.
So who is taking the make amends action here in this scene? Because we're going to have a role for each person that is taking the action.
What does it use?
Like many downtime, you get to pick what you're rolling. So I could imagine if maybe Jensia is rolling a channel, maybe somebody else is rolling sway.
Skirmish, clearly. I will beat them into believing us.
Is this one of those things where your number of dots counts? She said, using the technical RPG term. Because
Yes.
I have 2 in consort.
Yes. So you would roll like something you have more dots in, you're going to get more dice, greater chance of success.
I have 2 in sway, which would fit.
Yeah.
So,
and
but
the way that we're doing this, you don't have to all roll the same thing. Anybody that is using a downtime action can make this roll. I would say let's do them in order, because if you get rid of all of your exposure, I'm not going to make you use more actions on it.
Mike, can I survey? I'm sure I've asked you this before. Well, I guess I can't use... Okay, never mind. I guess I can't use special abilities during downtime. Because I was going to say, I wondered if I could use Gap in the Armor to survey, get a sense of what would work with this person. And that would allow me to then benefit, like give the bonus to either me or give it to whoever is going to do the make amends roll.
Sure.
I don't know if that works, though, or if I'm overstretching what we can do.
I will say that you get to give somebody a free assist here.
Okay.
So you could make your own roll, but then you could also give a +1d to somebody else.
I'll give it to somebody else who wants to like take this on.
Normally in downtime, you can give a free assist to another PC, but since multiple people are rolling, normally you wouldn't be able to do that because you're also doing your own thing.
Right, sure.
So this is we're hacking this game.
Yeah. No, I know. I'd say Zelpha.
That's how this works.
I don't know what you think, but I feel like Zelpha takes this on.
Okay.
No, I want it to be noted I am looking super fashionable thanks to Jensia's extra work now behind Zelpha, just to be clear.
Yeah. So what's Zelpha's version of this?
I am open to doing the thing. I have 2 dots in sway, as is my want. So yeah, I think we're opening with the very typical version of mollifying others in power, which is, we are sorry that we screwed up in all of these ways that we could not have anticipated. Here are all the things that we anticipated, and here's how we gained more information as a result of performing our risky action. But we apologize that it came back to you as a result.
Okay. Yeah, that feels very apropos in terms of trying to mollify the people at the top.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you going to take that? Should Zelpha be the one to get that +1d from Carevis?
I imagine.
Yeah, if that's good with you, Greg.
Yeah, that'd be my suggestion. Yep.
Okay, then yeah, you can take your sway and get +1d. No pushing required.
So am I rolling fortune or the skill?
This will be fortune with a number of dice equal to your sway +1 because of the assist.
3 dice.
Hey.
3, 4, 5. Okay,
Let's
on a
go.
4
We
or
needed
5, you reduce exposure by 2. And so I'm going to go to the house sheet and I'm going to take 2 more off. That takes you from 5 to 3. That's certainly a lot more comfortable of a position. So I think, you arrive, you make yourselves known, you present yourselves in the appropriate fashion, you make kind of the proper obeisances and gestures toward House Greymist's superior position. Throughout all of this, Jevli is kind of draped over a chair in like this. It's a dressing gown in cut, but it is presented and layered in such a fashion that it feels avant-garde rather than sloppy. And so she's kind of draped here and like nodding at all of this, and seems to like actually settle more into the lounge as Zelpha is speaking, which you take to be like that she is satisfied and well pleased that you're kind of kissing ass in the right way. So that gives you kind of the opportunity to continue. So I don't know if that's one of the other player characters then also making that downtime action. And if so, just let me know what that approach is and what you're going to roll. So is that Jensia?
I would think so.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be my suggestion.
She goes for the full. So her approach is going to be, she's going to, I think, not go full sort of like jockeying for power with how you're using jargon, but she's going to definitely sort of use jargon but assume that her audience knows what she means, and sort of be like, we both know that, this concept or whatever, even though she knows her audience probably has no idea what that concept is about.
I like the idea that many of us also have no idea, so we're all just like,
Oh.
definitely, no doubt, the quadraconsinial part of the blubbidizubidian is definitely,
Yeah, and is this channel?
Yeah.
I love channel as the representation of just like going esoteric, because it's not sway or consort, it's like you're thalmo-babbling at her.
Yes, exactly.
Love it. So that'll be a fortune roll with a number of dice equal to your channel.
Yeah.
There's a 6.
Let's go.
So that takes you from 3 to 0. And I'm going to roll 1d6 because I'm curious. Does this work because she knows what you're saying? Or does this work because you absolutely bamboozle her?
Shit goes.
I want it so badly to know. I want it so badly to know.
Right.
No, she's bamboozled.
Can she go to her servant and be like, "You fool"? Of course, blah 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 blah. So she can be like, she doesn't, because.
Yeah. I think she does that sort of, but what she actually, like, the kind of person she throws under the bus is Grey Mist's knack. Like Grey Mist's head knack. They're probably in a position where they have multiple kind of house knacks. And I think Jensia, you'd probably be the one that knows enough about like the lay of the land that Jevle has thrown their junior most knack under the bus in terms of kind of, oh, well, my knack told me this and this and this, but clearly he was mistaken based on what you're saying. And then she like misuses like something that's kind of on the level of cosmology. Like she misuses a term there that she was basically trying to like catch and throw back at you. But you are kind of the rest of the tea is very pleasant. If anybody kind of directs the conversation toward fashion, she really like kind of comes to life and like leans forward. And I think she's going to be curious about where Carevis, like who is Carevis's tailor? Is this the Vorster tailor? Do you have your own tailor? What does insert something on your outfit? What does that mean? Where does that come from? Like she likes fashion, but part of why she likes fashion is because it is about people. And so like there is an element of empathy from her along that axis.
Interesting. And it does seem genuine, this human interest.
Yeah, she's done what she needs to do for her family, and now she gets to have fun. She gets to talk about the things she wants to talk about. So I think you come away from this with, probably knowing that you're going to have a little bit of a positive vibe or response from Jevle here.
Nice.
Not enough to like change your overall status with House Grey Mist, but there's the start of something there. Okay. I'm kind of truncating a bit because we're getting a bit long on time. So that's 2. There's 2 other downtime actions. I think some folks talked about maybe wanting to train as well. So for Lutrus and Zelpha, what are you up to?
I wanted to train. Is this one of those things where we train to get a dot in our character XP? So you have to pick one of those things?
You pick an attribute and you gain 1 XP in that attribute, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can't understand why as a Kuth I don't have a dot in skirmish. I skirmish a lot. Maybe I'm just incredibly bad at it. But yeah, I would like to train in that.
In this style of game, all characters can do all 12 of the things. Mm-hmm. One of the ways that it's described is if you have, the more dots you have, the more readily you can do it without having to push yourself or get help. So we can talk about Lutrus as a perfectly competent combatant, but maybe he is better in a group. He is better fighting side by side with people because that was his experience, or that fighting is still stressful for him in a way that maybe it's not as stressful to Carevis because Carevis has gotten so used to it in a different way.
Okay. So maybe what I'd like to do is train to get rid of that sort of panic impulse, because whenever I fight, I just retreat to my army training. And of course, the kind of fighting I would need to do as a Kuth for House Vorster is very, very different from what I was doing in the army.
Sure. So do you go to, like, is there a house like Master at Arms? Do you go to Carevis? Are you training on your own?
I think I for once don't want anyone to know. So I find a private tutor out in the city. and I travel to and from her, and the lessons are private.
Yeah, and I think that's, even if Vorster found out, that would not raise anybody's eyebrows.
No.
Because you want to be able to do it on your time. You're spending basically your money instead of using the house's resources.
Yeah. And this is partly because I also want to learn a different way of fighting.
Sure.
This is the equivalent of like going to the mountain to see the elder and learning a new technique.
Okay, great. Then you can go ahead and mark the XP there. I'm definitely, because I studied a variety of martial arts, Mike, I'm very curious about lots and lots of details here, but I think I will cut myself off and ask you about it later.
You can get them, because I just started reading Legend of the Condor Heroes, so now I'm obsessed.
Cool. Yeah. So do you have a name for this tutor?
Yeah, her name is, she has a flower name, Iris.
Cool. Yeah, and I think Iris is all of 5'2".
Yeah.
And uses her small stature to just basically have no target to hit.
Yeah.
And I think a thing that you get from her is how to always move through a space to present the smallest amount of target.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that builds on the skills you already have, which she's able to kind of hone in on.
Yeah, and she also teaches me to not, while I'm doing this, not make my weapon crossways to myself so that it presents a target that someone could hit. Just make myself and the weapon, no matter what the weapon is, all one line.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to hit a line. It's easy to hit a sheet.
Great. And Zelpha, what are you up to?
Before I do the thing, I would just like to make sure, doesn't Carevis still have one free downtime action available?
Oh, Carevis, I took the bonus thing as an action, which it's not. So actually, Carevis is the one who has a downtime action left.
Oh, I thought that I thought I'd used it for the making amends.
No, I think you can do a separate thing. I just
reduce
misremembered.
More stress.
No,
go back to the priest.
You could go back. You could train. You could start a project.
I mean, okay. I would either train. Well, I'm not going to go back to the priest. That's silly. But I mean, mechanically, I really would like to not be at 4 stress going into this next thing. But training would be nice.
So the one mechanical note I will add is, if you wanted to hypothetically find out whether Sapphire was actually involved and the degree to which they were involved, you could use the uncover a plot downtime action.
Oh.
Now, you don't have to do that right away, but I do want to orient us to all of the downtime actions over time and in whatever way we can to kind of make sense. But I want to point to that because y'all have mentioned that previously today.
Yeah. Well,
in
then
the stuff with Grey Mist.
Is the person that I connected with at the party, the one that you let off the scene, if you remember, Mike? I don't remember who it was. The one
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, right? That's right. I should know that. I think that was my name.
Yeah,
that
I think you named him.
Rodriguez. I don't remember. I don't suppose he worked for House Sapphire, because he wasn't a Bravo from Vorster.
Yeah. I think we said that he worked for Fairest.
Damn.
But
I meant Sapphire is what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, Rodriguez, Bravo of House Fairest, friendly rival, has been sent around, a bunch on errands.
Well, I mean, then either stress reduction for me or uncovering a plot. I mean, I don't mind starting to uncover a plot. If people think.
Yeah. So when you roll, the better you roll, the kind of more, the less overt a scheme you can uncover.
Okay.
So at a minimum, you can uncover any clocks that involve reach. Reach is basically, I have power, I use power, I do thing. Grasp is kind of expanding or reaching at the kind of the edge of your capabilities.
Okay.
And sleight is incredibly subtle scheming. So it's hardest to uncover plots with that are using sleight, and easiest to use ones to uncover ones that are using reach.
Okay. But I'm not going to know that until I start trying to uncover the plot, right?
Right. You will you make a roll, and then the better your roll is, the more likely you are to uncover whatever their plot is, because if you get a 6 and they are doing any kind of plot, you find out what it is, because you get all of them. You get the biggest one, the middle one, and the least one. But if you only get the least one, and their project wasn't involving that kind of immediate grasp, or the immediate reach, then you wouldn't find out what the plot is. So
so I study up on all my spy broadsheets and all. Read a bunch of those, and then start to go and do the skullduggery bit. So this is a fortune roll, but do I get to call like what I'm doing that in, like whether it be would that be survey? I mean, it's a weakness in an argument, gesture, or evasion. So I'm wondering if that's
so you could be surveying House Sapphire's activities, where you go and watch different things.
Yeah. Okay. So let me do that then. And does this sound good to everybody, by the way? I mean, like, is this cool for everyone? I don't know. Like, okay. So roll fortune. So then so 2 dice, I guess. Then, Mike, is that what we're looking at? Because I have 2 in survey. So
yeah, unless is Carevis enlisting help here?
Oh. Well, yeah, I would probably, it would either be Zelpha or it would be Jensia, because actually, if Jensia is able to produce, let's say narratively, a charm or something that could detect if the same kind of magic is coming from Sapphire that was used on, because the Eels had these charms of some kind that allowed them to be disguised in a certain way. So basically, we're doing a blood analysis, right? Basically. So I'm wondering if Jensia could do that, then would that count as an assistant? Could I get an extra die? But I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Rhiannon?
Oh, I mean, she would love to be able to try. So if it's something that's possible to do, she would totally throw herself into that.
Yeah, I think because you've spent so much time working with those charms, building on that and kind of tracing things back and kind of cross-referencing it with what Carevis sees makes total sense. This you don't have to mark stress for this. Greg will just take +1d for Carevis on this fortune roll.
Okay, so that's 3 dice total?
Yep.
I believe. All right, let's go. Oh. If we had 6 dice, we would have gotten to 6. It was just gradually kind of looping
1,
up
2, 3. All right, so you uncover any clocks the house is currently working toward involving reach. And I will go and look at my scheming. So unfortunately, you are not able to uncover a specific plot. I think the thing that Sapphire is doing with reach right now is probably honestly disparaging the independent faction that also uses Plentifruit. They have like a propaganda campaign because this is a faction that is mostly through smuggling and theft gaining access to Plentifruit. So that's something that they're actively working on.
Okay.
But it is not a capital it is not a capital S scheme.
Okay. So good news, everyone. I found out that they suck, which we already knew.
Yep. So that one is, again, like I said, it's a bit of a risk because you might get the answer of there is not a thing this way.
Yeah.
but you're going to get some information. And I think any future work that you all do on this like Eel Sapphire connection, remind me when you're working on it, how many of these steps that you've taken toward it, because you have been putting a lot of work into it.
Is it reasonable to assume that it does feel at least that like Sapphire is trying to hide something? I mean, like, I don't know what, right? But is it reasonable to say that, can I know that they're doing something feels off about their behavior?
You know that you never feel like you're seeing all of what they can do.
Okay.
When you're watching them.
Okay.
Now that's pretty common, but if they were like 100% on the up and up, you feel like they'd be presenting themselves in a bit of a different fashion, but that's pretty rare in this game because everybody's in a like 5-way fight.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. So that not as rewarding, but I was very happy with all of that RP that y'all did. So we can turn to XP real quick before we do an outro and say good night and good time zone to all of our lovely viewers. So let's start with the house sheet. So for House Vorster, you overcame an obstacle with honor or tradition. Do you think, would you all see the visit to Grey Mist as qualifying here?
Definitely counts as resolution with honor, to me at least.
Well, and tradition too. I think there's probably a very long tradition of houses doing this exact kind of tea.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Yeah.
So do you, with these, if you hit it, you get 1. Hitting it multiple times does not give more XP because we've got the slower XP curve. So honor or tradition for sure. You contended with challenges above your current station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every interaction that we've had so far has been above our station.
Yeah.
All the stuff today with the other houses for sure. You bolstered your coteries reputation or developed a new one. Your reputation is daring. Were you daring or were you something else today?
I think we described ourselves as being daring, but for an honorable reason.
Sure.
So I think we bolstered our daring reputation by saying, yeah, we did this instead of doing nothing.
Right. And it is also a bit daring to be like, yeah, we screwed up.
Yeah. We made a mess. We took an incredible risk, and we're sorry that it hit you. But we're not ashamed of the risk we took, and we will take it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
You express the goals, drives, inner conflict, or essential nature of the coterie.
Well, I mean, I think I mean, certainly individuals, I think we did. Certainly Zelpha did. And I would say probably I did directly. And so did Jensia. Yeah, I feel like everybody, including Lutrus, who was trying to get Petros kind of into the house. Yeah, I feel like all of us did. Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, did you protect Valloward or her interests?
Absolutely. We're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We went and talked to Grey Mist about it. We, sort of slightly debased ourselves just so we could be like, hey, yes, I think so.
We reformed a criminal and deleted all of his kin. So
yeah.
So that takes you to 9 of 10 XP on the coterie sheet because you got all of the XP possible for that. And now we're going to go character by character, and then we'll do a quick outro and say good night. Who would like to go first for today?
I can go.
Okay, Zelpha Hamill, getting into good trouble. Okay, you addressed a challenge with expertise.
I would say checking in with Jensia about her training definitely counts.
Okay. And you addressed a challenge with calculation.
Trying to get this granny her rent back.
Okay. That's 2. You struggled with issues from your indulgences or scandals. Yes.
Yes, I did. I overindulged, and now I apparently have a gang looking for me. That's going to be delightful.
Oh, and that's just the symptoms.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This is gonna be fun.
Brandon wrote creative agenda on a piece of paper, and I ate it and now have been throwing up confetti of plot. So let's go. You expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. What aspect do you want to highlight here?
I mean, my Dialton heritage comes up a lot in everything that I do.
Yep.
Especially here. So I'm gonna lean on my Dialton heritage a lot in this game.
Yeah.
So let's just always give me XP for that one. 100%, every single time.
So that's 4. Where do you want to put those?
So I would like to put all of those in character XP.
Okay.
So
Great.
now I am 9 of 10. Am I counting that correctly? Yes, I am now 9 of 10.
Okay. Very close.
This close to getting another ability.
Great. So who shall go next?
I can go next, I guess.
All right, Carevis, you addressed a challenge with violence and or panache.
Not violence, maybe panache. Definitely not the encounter with the priest was not that. I don't know. I don't feel like I addressed the overcoming the plot situation. Uncovering a plot was not really with any of that. The only thing I can think of is maybe going to House Grey Mist. But
yeah, like do you feel like the panache element involve, like, does that include reading a weakness in a social situation and then helping someone exploit it?
To the degree that was the case, yes. And I do think the House Grey Mist encounter did go very well. We didn't. None of us really rolled super great most of this session, but that was one that did. So in that sense, yes.
Okay. So that's 1. You expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background.
Yes, no question about it, especially with the priest right off from the very beginning, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Background, long-term relationship.
Yeah.
There in terms of kind of looking up to him.
And also the things I value, the things that come out as a result of it.
You struggled with issues from your indulgence or scandals.
I mean,
I feel like you struggled personally, but I don't know about like struggle in a make a roll fashion.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Tell you what, if you go and pursue that kind of mission that the father gave you, that'll definitely give you an opportunity for that kind of XP.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So is that 2?
I guess that's 2.
Okay. Great. And think about where you want to put those as we go over to Jensia.
So address the challenge with arcane knowledge. I would say that was probably talking to Grey Mist.
Yeah.
Because and then with power would be the training and learning in the training.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So 2, and then express beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. The training, bouncing off Zelpha and how she looks at magic and that sort of thing, I would say maybe goes for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say probably not for issues from indulgences or scandals, because that's not something that came up. So that would be 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can put those wherever. It looks like you could fill your spirit track.
Yeah. Would that be too OP?
No.
Cool. So when it's full, then I can.
Then you can put 1 more dot in some action in spirit. So that could be a 3rd dot in channel. Or anywhere else.
Okay. I mean, let's just do it.
Yeah. You can't get the 4th dot until you're a higher house, but you can get up to that 3,
cool.
Unless I'm mistaken. And if I am, I will correct myself at a later date.
Mike, I put 2 in body, by the way.
Great. Thank you.
So.
Okay. And Lutrus, who worked so hard for Petros, and the dice were not happy. So for you.
So address the challenge with evasion. I don't think so. I think I was fairly straightforward this time. Unless we take the training as, I am not telling anybody about it and training outside of the house.
Yeah.
Oh,
These are
I
always
don't
going
think
to
that
be,
counts.
yeah, they're up to the player.
Yeah.
So it's about like setting a bar that you feel good about.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that's in this case not
Okay.
evasion. Okay.
Addressed a challenge with mayhem. Speaking of mayhem, hello.
Hi, can you
hello,
please move?
Kitty.
Okay, so that's a no.
I am mayhem.
He is mayhem. His name is Fiasco. Mayhem, not this time during the downtime. I don't think so. I feel that I did express my belief drives, heritage, or background, particularly my drive. Trying to get Petros out from under the same shadow I feel like I'm working under,
Yeah.
and background ditto, coming up from the gutter, quote unquote.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one. And struggled with issues for my indulgences or scandals. No, not this time.
Okay. So
That's one.
there's one you can put anywhere. That's character XP or any of the attribute tracks.
I think I'm going to put it in mind.
Okay. So that will bring us to the end of our session of Court of Blades Valloward. I want to say thank you to the lovely cast. Thank you specifically to Rhiannon for returning as a guest star and playing Jensia and helping us kind of fill out and investigate the magical part of the world in the setting, which has been really fun. I will remind everyone that they should return to the channel tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern for our amazing fundraiser marathon, which will be starting with a D&D one-shot DM'd by our very own Gregory Wilson, aka Arvin Elleron. But before we sign off for the day, I'm going to invite everyone to remind the fine folks who are watching now or watching later now where they can find you and your work, and then we will finish up. So we're going to start again with Brandon.
I was muted, but I'm not anymore. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago. One of the co-hosts of Speculate alongside Michael R. Underwood and Gregory A. Wilson. And I also wrote this book. It's called Can You Send My Tentacle? It's a very weird, silly, mildly frightening collection of poetry about Lovecraft, about hip-hop, and about the ways in which that we can probably be better to our world and to ourselves. And it won the SFPA Elgin Award, so obviously other people like it, so maybe you like it as well. And of course, a reminder to come join us on stream on Saturday, where, among other things, I'll be joining Greg and Mike in a game of Destiny 2, where I get to talk about space magic and guns that don't like us, and I will definitely be very overjoyed to engage in some gunplay shenanigans in space. So yes, that's going to be fun. And that's just one of the things that we're going to be doing that on Saturday, so please come join us.
Yeah, I definitely vouch for Can You Sign My Tentacle? Everyone should buy that, and
Agreed.
everyone should read it. It's very, very good.
Yep.
It's very good. Thanks everyone for a great night of gameplay. Thank you to Mike, our wonderful dancing master. I'm Premee Mohamed, a scientist and author. If you want to catch up with me while Twitter still exists, I'm on there as Premeesaurus. Same with Instagram. My website is premeemohamed.com, and I have a Patreon that's just patreon.com/Premee. So people will be able to keep up with me there. The cat is being extremely naughty tonight. And if people would like to pick up my recent Nebula and World Fantasy Award winning novella, And What Can We Offer You Tonight? Please do. You might enjoy it. It's won awards, and you would be supporting a wonderful small press neon hemlock.
I'm Rhiannon Held. If you want to pick up my books, the first book in my urban fantasy series is Silver, and the first novella in my space opera series under RZ Held is called Clean Install. And I'm also next week, I'm part of another actual play, Dungeon Scrawlers. And Wednesday at 6:30 Pacific, I'm running a special one-shot archaeology episode. So we are going to go excavate and survey in Mithranor. So that should be a lot of fun if you want to stop by.
Nice. It's awesome. My name is Gregory Wilson. I'm Arvin Elleron here on this channel. Thank you also to Mike for the wonderful Dancing Master work as always, and to the rest of the players. Again, I would point people to Greyshade, !Greyshade, if you want to know more about the stuff in which I am most actively occupied at the moment, writing-wise, with all of the stuff associated with that. Also, I'd encourage everyone to stick around right after the stream, after the players are let go, because we're going to do a raid, and we will raid another Twitch channel as we were raided earlier on. Thank you to Kilgore Trout for raiding us with that group of people. That was really great. And some of those folks, I think, actually stuck around as well. So that's really awesome. And I have again put this link right here. That's the place to retweet and let people know about our Speculate fundraiser happening tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. And as we was noted, starting with that D&D one-shot. So that would be great. And we have a Prime sub. Oh, it's Law. Change the name. What's up, Law? It's good to see you. Long time subscriber and mod and person like that. Thank you for the resub. I appreciate it. So anyway, yes. So yeah, I thought about that, but I have someone else in mind actually that I think will work out well. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's me, and you can find more Speculate stuff coming tomorrow. Over to you, Mike.
I have been your humble dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Mike everywhere except my byline. I write science fiction, fantasy, mostly adventure stuff. You can watch me stream video games and or talk about TTRPGs and storytelling at twitch.tv/turbotango. You can buy my silly Star Trek pastiche game, The Only Logical Solution is Hijinks, at michaelrunderwood.itch.io. And you can see me participating in the marathon fundraiser for Speculate tomorrow. If you like Court of Blades, I would also direct your attention to Queen's Court Games, who are kicking off a Court of Blades series of their own, where they are doing their own cool stuff with setting and taking what I understand to be an interesting twist on kind of the setup. I believe that series of theirs is scheduled to start on November the 15th. Aaron or V, if you're in the chat, please weigh in about that. That's the last date that I remember hearing, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm really curious to see what they are doing with Court of Blades, because we've been chatting, and it's always fun to see how a group kind of puts their kind of their imprimatur on something. All right, dates are ephemeral and have no meaning. So stay tuned. So what you should do is you should follow Queen's Court RPG on Twitter and get news about what they do there. Other than that, I'm going to say thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you to all of the raiders who came in via GOG and decided to hang out and spend some time with us as we tell a cool swashbuckling intrigue story in this fun fantasy setting. Thank you all to my wonderful players. And I think now we will vanish because while our characters are dashing and have exciting adventures past midnight, I am tired and I want to go to bed. So thank you all. You're wonderful. And I hope to see most of you tomorrow for more festivities. And now back to our lovely host, Greg.
Stick around for the raid, everyone. Bye, chat. Thanks, everyone. And we will see you folks tomorrow for the Speculate fundraiser. Good night for now.
Welcome, dearest retainers, to Court of Blades, and welcome to Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. A city where hearts race and swords flash, where intrigue and danger lie around every corner. Centuries ago, celebrated veterans were given title to Valor Isle, a place long abandoned by its first residents. Here, the heroes found ancient secrets, bountiful land, and a fruit bearing oracular gifts. Generations later, 6 families vie for ultimate control of this jewel of the archipelago, each seeking to lead the great dance of houses. A new retinue rises to clash with flashing blades, veiled plots, and powerful magics in pursuit of their house's interests and their own secret ambitions. Speculate presents Valloward, a Court of Blades campaign, starring Premee Mohamed, Marie Bilodeau, Brandon O'Brien, Gregory A. Wilson, and your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood. Be welcome, retainer. Get comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's time for Court of Blades.